Так, давайте стартуємо, мабуть.
Well, let's start probably.
Отже, доброго дня всім чи доброго ранку.
So, hello everyone.
Мене
Good day,
звати
or rather,
Тамара
good
Малькова.
morning.
Я
My name is
буду
Tamara
модерувати
Malkova. I'm going to be a
сьогоднішню
moderator of
дискусію.
our today's
Я є
discussion.
директоркою
I'm
інформаційного
a
центру «Зелене
director of
досьє»,
of
а мої колеги Катерина
IC Green
Шор, Надія
Dossier, and my
Шевченко
colleagues
будуть
Katerina Shor, Nadia
допомагати
Shevchenko will be
в
helping
технічних питаннях.
in
Отож, отже,
technical matters.
Катерина, у нас є якісь
Katarina,
зауваження, попередження щодо
do we have
технічної
certain
частини?
information concerning technical part of our today's event? We are recording our today's discussion platform, and if someone would like to be present and later to be on the video, you can switch off your cameras. And the recording will be public later in English and in Ukrainian, and we will spread it among participants of our today's event. Thank you.
Дякую, Катерино.
Thank
Отже,
you,
ми сьогодні
Katerina.
проводимо
So
черговий
today
захід у нашому
we are
проєкті.
conducting yet
Проєкт
another
«Зелена та
event
інклюзивна
in our
політика.
project,
Кроки
Project
назустріч».
Green and Inclusive
Сьогодні ми
Agrarian
цей захід
Policy.
проводимо в партнерстві з
Today,
проєктом
this
Євросоюзу
event is
«Інституційна та
conducted
політична
in the
реформа
partnership
дрібномасштабного
of Institutional
сільського
and Policy Reform for
господарства в Україні».
Smallholder
Будемо його
Agriculture
скорочено
EU
далі
project.
називати
We are going
ІПРСА.
to call it
А наш
IPRSA
проєкт
later.
впроваджується
Our
інформаційним центром «Зелене
project
досьє» за
is
підтримки Європейського
implemented by
Союзу та
Information Center
Міжнародного
Green
фонду
Dossier
відродження
with
в
the
рамках
support of
спільної ініціативи
International
«Європейське
Renaissance Foundation
відродження
within the
України.
framework European
Я дуже
Renaissance of
рада
Ukraine
надати
project.
зараз
And
слово
I'm very
пані
happy to
Ользі
give the floor
Квашук, яка
now to
представляє якраз
Olga
програму
Kvashuk, who's the
Міжнародного фонду
representative of
відродження і
the International Renaissance
дуже
Foundation program,
ретельно
and
підтримує
she
наш
has
проєкт.
been
Прошу, пані
supporting
Ольго.
our project for pretty long time. Hello, everyone. I will try to be concise because I see that we have very full agenda. I would like to say why International Renaissance Foundation and the European Union finds it so important to support initiatives and the project of Green Dossier, because we have been dealing for pretty long time with promotion of association agreement and ratification agreement, and previous year before the full-scale invasion with Green Dossier, with range of other organizations that I see as participants of our today's event, we were working on at least informally for Ukraine to be in that track of European Green course of the EU policy. And now when we already start negotiations about the EU accession, it's very important for us on the one hand to improve legislation, hand it's important for communities and for business to look for partnerships and to use the opportunities provided by this new status, because there are lots of tools open for candidate countries. Just 1 week ago, I visited one event in Lviv. It was a forum called Eurointegration for communities, for Romadas, and actually there was this request that communities lack very practical cooperations to later implement joint projects in various topics, in particular agro. And in my opinion, this project about Carpathian farmers, how they should build cooperation with neighboring countries, how to make such regional initiatives. It is also crucial since the EU is implementing Green Deal. We hear about certain improvements of agrarian policy, and we have to be in the loop and to be part of this project, despite of the fact that we have full-scale war going on, but it is part how we are going to be engaged, at least like this, to building of our future, and that will be our small contribution to our victory. So I wish all of us fruitful discussion today.
Дякую, пані Ольго.
Thank you, Olga.
Дякую.
Thank you.
Знаєте, протягом
You
цього
know,
року ми провели
during this
багато
year, we
різних
have
заходів, дуже
conducted lots of
цікавих,
various
і це були
events,
і
interesting
дискусії,
events.
і
These
дуже
were
багато
discussions,
питань
and
піднімалися нашими
many
учасниками.
matters,
І
issues were
були
raised by our
особисті
participants. And there
зустрічі,
were personal
коли наші
meetings
колеги з
when our
сусідніх
colleagues
країн карпатських
from
приїздили до
neighboring
Закарпаття,
countries
і
came to
знайомства, і дискусії.
Transcarpathian. There
Можу
were some
точно
meetings,
сказати,
discussion.
що
I can tell for sure that within this period of time, we do not have less questions. We have even more of them. Of course, we haven't been able to find answers to all of these questions, but we know for sure, and we absolutely agree with the participants of our project, that people that have wise management in their lands, first of all, should live well. And second of all, farmers on different sides of borders in Carpathians, they should have adequate and equal conditions for work, for life. They have to be friends, they have to cooperate, and participants of our project agree with it from our Ukrainian side and from countries of Carpathian Convention. And what do we mean by these equal conditions? We see it as our EU accession, when our farmers, when we all shall have equal rights and responsibilities with our neighbors. Today, we have invited to join our discussion representatives of two ministries, Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Agrarian Policy and Food. And now negotiation process has already started, but now negotiations with these clusters, agrarian cluster, formally they haven't started yet, but we understand that these negotiations basically already on, people get ready for them, and we would like to ask representatives of these two ministries. Probably they will not tell us exactly when our farmers will be in the EU, but maybe they can outline our current stage, what are our biggest challenges, and what we will have to solve together. We know that agrarian business and ecological requirements posed by the European Green Deal have lots of problematic topics. We will still have to solve all of it together and cooperate. I would like to give the floor now to Mr. Bogdan Samonenko, Director of the Industrial Pollution Prevention and Climate Policy Department of the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Natural Resources of Ukraine. Please, Mr. Bogdan, your vision. Yes, hello everyone. Hello, dear colleagues. I'm happy to welcome all of you here. Today we have gathered here to discuss one of the biggest and most important, most relevant matters for our country, for our future. It is implementation of requirements of the European Green Deal, in particular in the agrarian sphere of Ukraine. The European Green Deal in essence, is a complex strategy of the European Union, the aim of which is to get climate neutrality by 2050, at the same time without making any harm to other spheres of environment. So the most important principle is do not significant harm. And I would like to emphasize here that Ukraine, despite the war, has already decided on this aim. Recently, climate law has been adopted, fundamental one on climate policy of Ukraine, and we already have long-term goal there of achieving carbon neutrality by 2050. It's the same one as the European Union has. And actually, we do believe that we can achieve this goal by reducing greenhouse effects, increasing usage of renewable sources of energy, and having sustainable and fast development of economy that will cover all spheres, in particular agrarian sectors that have huge influence on environment. What is agrarian sector for Ukraine? Of course, agriculture occupies important role for the national economy, but this sector is also facing certain ecological challenges while implementing requirements of European Green Deal. It's a degradation of soils, it's decrease of biodiversity, contamination of water resources, and influence of
частині, в
agricultural
тому числі
activity on
викидів
climate
парникових
change,
газів. З
also
огляду
when
на
we're
це
talking about
важливо, щоб аграрна
greenhouse gases.
політика України
So that's
була
why it's
орієнтована на
important for
сталий
agrarian policy
розвиток,
of Ukraine
підвищення
to be oriented
екологічної
towards
ефективності
sustainable
та адаптацію до
development,
нових
increase of
екологічних
ecological
стандартів, що
effectivity,
визначаються
and
Європейським
adaptation
зеленим
to new
курсом. Це
ecological
дуже важливо,
standards
в тому
defined
числі
by the
і в
European Green Deal.
рамках наших
It is also
переговорних
important within the
позицій з
framework of
Європейським
our
Союзом щодо
negotiations
вступу
positions
до
with the European
Європейського
Union
Союзу.
concerning EU accession.
Якщо ми кажемо щодо
If
зменшення
to talk
парникових
about
газів,
decrease
то
of
в аграрному
greenhouse
секторі
gases,
є
then in the agrarian
одним з
sector,
основних джерел
one of
викидів
the main
є
sources
метан,
of emissions is methane
який виділяється від
that
тваринництва,
is
а також
emitted
через
from
застосування хімічних
husbandry and
добрив.
also from because of
В
using of
плані
chemical
метану ми
fertilizers.
маємо певний
Concerning
прогрес.
methane, we
Вже
have
під
certain
час війни
progress
влітку
already during the
2023
war in
року в
July
рамках глобальних
2023
Unpledge
within Global
було
Methane Pledge.
схвалено план заходів
The
зі
plan,
скорочення
the
викидів
action plan was
метану,
approved
згідно з
on
яким до
decreasing methane
2030 року
emissions,
ми
according
маємо
to which by
скоротити викиди на
2030 we have to decrease such
30%.
emissions by
Тож у нас вже є план,
30%. So we
нам
already have
потрібно
plans,
його
and we
впроваджувати. В
this
травні
plan have to be
2024
implemented.
року
In
також
May
Кабінетом міністрів
2024, the
України було
Ministry of
схвалено стратегію
the
формування
Cabinet
та
Ministers of
реалізації
Ukraine
державної
approved the
політики у сфері
strategy of
зміни
formation and
клімату до
implementation
періоду
of
до
state policy in the
2035
sphere of
року.
climate change.
І затверджено
And
операційний план
we
заходів з
approved
її
operational
реалізації
action plan on its implementation by
2024-2026 роках. Так от, згідно
2024-2026
цього
for
плану, в
2024-2026. So according
2025
to this
році
plan, in
заплановано завершення
2025, we
проведення
planned to
дослідження
finalize
щодо
conducting
оцінки ризиків та
research on
вразливостей
assessing
сільського
risk
господарства до
and
зміни
vulnerabilities
клімату
of
до
agriculture
до
to climate change.
2026
And by
року розробити
2026,
та
we have to
затвердити
develop
програмний
and
документ
approve a
щодо
program
адаптації
document
сільського
on
господарства до
adaptation of
зміни клімату.
agriculture to climate changes.
Ми, як Міндовкілля, дуже
We,
сподіваємося, що
as a Ministry of
започатковано в червні
Environment, do believe
2024
that
року регіональний
what
проект
in
міжнародної
this
фінансово-технічної
regional
допомоги
project
Європейського Союзу
on
сприяння
financial support of the
готовності
European
країн
Union that
Східного
was approved in
партнерства до реалізації
2024
Європейського
and readiness of
зеленого
the countries of
курсу
Eastern
або
Partnership for
скорочено прогрес
implementation of
допоможе
Green Deal or
міністерству або
progress
допоможе
in,
уряду у виконанні вищезазначених завдань,
in
а
short,
також
will help
сприятиме
our
адаптації
government
малого та
to implement
середнього
all these tasks,
бізнесу
and
до
it will also help
європейських правил
adaptation of small and
відповідно
medium
до цілей
enterprises to
Європейського
European
зеленого курсу.
rules according to the goals
Продовжуючи
of the
тему
European
майбутніх
Green
планів,
Deal.
звичайно, згідно з
Talking about
Законом про
our future
кліматичну
plans, of
політику, ми
course,
маємо затвердити
uh,
регіональні плани з адаптації,
according
котрі
to
будуть
our law, we
враховувати
have to
регіональні
adopt
особливості
regional
та сценарії
adaptation plan that will take into account
кліматичних змін до
peculiarities and
2050
scenarios of
року,
climatic changes by
а також
2050,
національну
and
стратегію,
also national
де так само маємо
strategy, where
передбачити
we
адаптацію
also
до
have
змін,
to
в тому числі
presuppose adaptation to
в
changes in
аграрному
the
секторі, та
agrarian
шляхи
sector as
боротьби
well, and
або
ways
адаптації
of
до них.
adaptation
Також в
or
2025 році маємо затвердити
adaptation
нову
to them. Also, in
стратегію низьковуглецеву
2025, we have
стратегію,
to
котра має
adopt
узагальнити
low
усі
carbon
напрацювання,
strategies
в
that
тому
have to
числі з
generalize all
адаптації, в тому
developments and
числі
adaptation
в енергетики, в усіх
in
сферах щодо
energy, in all the
шляху
other
досягнення
spheres
вуглецевої
concerning
нейтральності у
the way of achieving
2050 році.
carbon neutrality
Тож
in
плани у
2050.
нас
So
є,
we have plans.
готовність до впровадження цих
We
заходів
are
і вже
ready to
заходи є.
implement all these
Україна, попри
measures.
війну, продовжує
Ukraine,
рухатися
despite the
зеленим
war,
курсом
keeps
Європи і
on
продовжує ставити
uh,
собі амбітні
moving
цілі і
towards the
навіть
Green Deal,
показувати,
and we set
попри
ambitious
війну,
goals for
результати в
ourselves, and
цьому
even despite
напрямку.
the war, we achieve results in
Тож,
this direction.
дякую вам за
So
увагу.
thank you for your attention.
Дякую, пане Богдане.
Thank you, Bogdan.
Ну, звичайно, хочеться, щоб
Of
хочеться
course,
послухати пану
we would
Миколу
like to
Мороза,
listen to
який є
Mykola
начальником
Moros as well,
управління
who is the head of
сільського
the Rural
розвитку
Development
Міністерства аграрної
Department,
політики
Ministry
та
of Agrarian
продовольства
Policy and Food
України.
of Ukraine.
Ну, власне,
And
вимоги, кліматичні вимоги,
requirements,
плани
climate
щодо
requirements, plans
адаптації до зміни
concerning
клімату,
adaptation to
вони
climate
від
changes.
Міністерства довкілля,
They are
вони
from the
зрозумілі.
Ministry of Environment,
Чи,
they're clear.
наскільки складно
But
аграріям буде
how difficult
враховувати
it is for
всі ці
agrarian to
вимоги
take into account
з
all of
огляду
these
на
requirements, taking into
наш вступ
account
до
our
Євросоюзу і
future
участь у
EU
спільній
accession and participation
аграрній політиці
in
Євросоюзу.
common
Пане
agrarian
Миколо, ви з
policy of
нами?
the European Union. Mykola, are you with us?
Вітаю вас,
Yes, yes, hello.
колеги. Дякую за
Dear
запрошення.
colleagues, thank you for the
Цікавістю
invitation.
слухаю
It is interesting
виступи.
for me to
Мене
listen to
звати
all of the
Микола
speeches.
Мороз,
My name is
і до
Mykola
сфери моєї
Moros, and
відповідальності
in
належить
my mandate,
питання
I
розробки
have
стратегії
development
розвитку
of
сільського господарства,
strategy of
впровадження спільної
agricultural
аграрної
development,
політики,
implementation
розвиток
of joint agrarian policy,
фермерства, в
development
першу
of
чергу малих
farming,
середніх
of
підприємств.
SMEs,
І
and
крім того,
Apart from that, we have been working on implementing range of European initiatives, such as creation of a paying agency. The funds will be directed for Ukrainian agrarians, creation of a control system, monitoring system. So it's pretty complex approach. But I would like to talk about our strategy right now. The strategy that has been developed by the Ministry of Agrarian Policy right now, the Secretariat of the Cabinet of Ministers is considering it, and we do hope that in the nearest future it will be adopted. What it presupposes, it is as close as possible to joint European agrarian policy. We have taken into account practically all the 10 points that are in joint agrarian policy, but of course that it has its peculiarities. We have to understand that we have the war going on. We have certain limitations concerning access to finances. We have constant threat, constant danger because of the damages. We have huge problem with staff in the in farming, in agri-industry. So that's why we tried to adopt European approaches and connect them with Ukrainian realia. I can talk a lot about the strategy, but I would like to dwell on key aspects, several key aspects that might be of interest for you. First, and the most important, I think one of the most important things is that in our strategy, we declare about the benefit of receiving support for the development for small enterprises, for small farms. Because if we understand that big enterprises are more oriented to European market, they are getting ready to implementing European requirements mostly. They have knowledge, they have access to finances. That for small farmers, it all has to be provided. Access to knowledge, access to finances, consultation support, to tell what to do, how to do, and the most important thing is to give the tools.
What is also important that for the first time in the strategy we have the issue of rural development. And this time the strategy is not only about agricultural production, it is also about rural development because these items are interrelated and it becomes clear that rural lands, that will be something that will be used by small farmers. These are the people who create jobs on the ground. These are the people who know local people well, and they are also interested in those territories where they reside. They are interested in effective development of these territories. Also, there is another important issue pertaining approximation of Ukraine with the European Green Deal. However, we have to be aware of the fact that taking into consideration the current situation in Ukraine, we will introduce the EU acquis, however, factoring in the current situation. What do I mean by that? Of course, when we speak about agriculture, very often we know that it is related to pollution and many other things. We know that cattle are the main source of methane, but actually we can see a reduction in terms of volumes. So we have this reduction by 3 times already. So the source of methane is experiencing reduction, but this is not exactly what we would like to happen. Secondly, Ukrainian farmers use less pesticides and well fertilizer as compared to European farmers, because in our strategy we understand that reduction is not part of the initiative that we have to implement, because actually when we have the minimum levels as compared to any EU state, we still have resources and there is still some place for us to actually use fertilizers without harming the nature. However, there is another important emphasis in our strategy, which will be aimed at incentivizing of farmers working on these restrictions that we have about fertilizers, stimulation of organic production, as well as a separate emphasis which is going to be placed on the development of biocircular economy, reduction of waste. That is another priority of the strategy that we will be committed to. With reference to what Bogdan has already stated, we are moving in the same direction with regard to renewable energy sources in production. That is something which is encompassed in our strategy as well. On the whole, I think that it will be interesting probably for many farmers who are present. There is some information. This year, support will be aimed at small farmers. The restrictions that we had was 120 hectares. I mean, it is about those farms or not more than 100 uh, cows or not more than 500 sheep and goats. So that is why we focus on small farmers. And of course, there will be some questions about that, about support for the next year. We are going to continue this program for the next year, and we will also have payment for hectares, for cows, for sheep, and goats. I think that's everything on my end. If there are any questions, I'm happy to take them. Thank you.
Дякую, пане Микола.
Thank you, Mr.
Я думаю, що
Moroz.
запитання,
I
поки що
think
не
that,
розумію, наскільки ми будемо вкладатися
yes,
в час.
I'm
Давайте ми
I'm not sure
запитання
about our
скажімо, в чаті.
agenda and
Тільки
timelines
я
that we
хотіла
have, so
одне
probably we will
запитання
have
вам обом, пане
questions
Богдане, пане
in the
Миколо,
chat box.
поставити.
I would like to address
Скажіть, будь
the
ласка,
question to both of
от
you,
якщо
Mikola and
брати, Україна все-таки вона дуже різна,
Toman.
да? Якщо
We
брати
know that
Карпати, от
Ukraine is
якісь
very
особливості, це
diverse, and if
гірський
you speak about the
регіон, це
Carpathian region, this is a
сільське
mountainous
господарство
region. We speak
відрізняється
about
від того, що у
agriculture, and
нас
we know that
в центральній
mountain
частині,
agriculture
скажімо.
is
Чи
different from agriculture in
враховуєте ви
central
оці
part of Ukraine.
особливості
Do you
саме
take into
регіональні карпатські
consideration
у
the
стратегії і у
specifics of this
підходах
region, the Carpathian region, in your
офіційних?
strategy, in your approaches, I mean, formally expressed, of course? Yes, if I may, I would like to provide some feedback. It is not about taking into consideration the peculiarities of the Carpathian region as such, but it is about the shaping of inclusive policy. And actually, everything will be focused on local needs, going upwards. It will be this approach, bottoms up approach. So, this, oh, yes and no, because in the strategy, we do not have any specific information about mountain regions. However, it is stated that we take into consideration all the specifics of all the regions and that they will be provided with resources and they will use these resources at their discretion. However, we know that sometimes people in Kyiv, they do not really know what's going on the ground in any regions of the country. That is why we will root for this type of policy, which is region oriented. Thank you. Bogdana, over to you now.
Дійсно, на національному
Yes,
рівні
at the
по
national
національних
level,
регіональних
as part of the
стратегіях
national global strategies for the environment, we do not have any, well, divisions, so to say, with regard to regional aspects. However, we have regional programs on adaptation. And in these programs, you will find already some results and analytics about climatic threats and risks for the future in different scenarios of further global warming. So there are different scenarios considered, and there are different types of response of different stakeholders at the global level related to a certain region. And certainly, we can speak of very diverse challenges. There are very many nuances to them. There are different natural aspects, and it is about, well, flooding. If to speak about this region, we know that there is a high risk of that happening. Also, about other nature-related events
як це сказати, екоризиків, котрі
avalanches,
будуть
environmental
виникати під
risks,
час
which could
змінення
take
клімату, вони
place
мають бути
as a result
включені в
of
регіональні
climate
програми.
change. They have to be
І
part of regional
там в
programs.
цій
They have to be
регіональній програмі
reflected
мають
there.
бути
And through these
передбачені
regional
заходи щодо
programs,
того,
we
яким
will
чином
also
ми
have
можемо
measures
або
to be
адаптуватися,
taken
або зменшити
about
цей ризик.
adaptation
І
or
в рамках
mitigation of
космосу в
such
тому
risks.
числі
Also,
мають бути
there have to
запропоновані рішення
be
щодо того,
such
яким чином для
steps
агросектору
suggested
всі кліматичні
regarding
ризики
different
мають бути
countermeasures
озвучені.
for climatic risks
Наскільки
to
я
be
знаю, що
aligned
для
for all the regions.
Закарпатського регіону
For
ще не
the
розроблена та не
Transcarpathian
затверджена
region, as far as I
жодна
know,
програма.
there has been no
Ми
program
виключно
developed
тільки
or
у листопаді
adopted.
місяці прийняли
In
кліматичний закон,
October,
де
we
у нас
adopted the
є
climate law.
вже на законодавчому
At
рівні
the legislative level, we already
розуміння,
have
визначення, що
a
воно має бути
definition
розроблено та затверджено
that
на
it has to
регіональному
be
рівні.
developed
Тому
and
і
approved
зараз ми
at
чуємо від
the
різних
regional
регіонів
level. We can
запити
hear it.
щодо того,
We
щоб ми
can
їх підтримували
hear
в
from different
розробці цих
regions. They have many
регіональних програм з
requests to
адаптації.
receive
Ми
support
вже в
on
рамках міжнародного
on
пакету
their
допомоги
adaptation
АП на
regional
3
programs.
розробили для
As
3
part of
перших
the project, we
областей регіонів,
already
котрі до
have
нас
some
звернулися
results
в ці
for 3
програми.
regions which
Ось
address
і
us
зараз
to be supported for
плануємо, хочемо
development of
додати ще
adaptation regional
додатково.
programs, and
Як в
also
рамках
we plan
проекту
to
прогрес
add
там є
something
певний
on top of
кластер
that as part of
EU
progress
for Climate
project EU
Resilience,
for
так і в
climate
рамках
resilience, and
продовжуючогося
also
проекту АП на 3
to
ми плануємо
continue
трошки
Open 3
перерозподілити
project. We
пріоритети для
plan
того,
to
щоб пришвидшити
reconsider
чи
a little bit our
прискорити
priorities
розроблення та
to
затвердження
facilitate the
регіональних програм
process
з
of design
адаптації, в
and
котрих, як я вже і
approval of
сказав, буде
such
враховано
programs. As
регіональний
I've already
компонент,
mentioned,
регіональний
a
ризик.
regional component will be reflected
Добре,
in these
дякую
programs.
дуже,
Thank
пане
you. Thank you
Богдане.
so
І там
much,
у нас
Bogdan.
в чаті є
You can also
посилання
see
пані
in the
Франчески
chat
на
a reference
досвід,
from Francesca
на
Passetti.
відео, да? Досвід Румунії, здається.
There is
Подивимося
Romanian
пізніше.
experience
Зараз
shared with
ми
us,
йдемо до Європейського
and
Союзу, і,
we
звичайно, було б
are on
цікаво
the path of
послухати,
joining
а
the
що,
European
власне,
Union. And of course, it would be
Європейська
really
комісія,
important for
як вона
us to
нас
learn
бачить
more
світ,
about the
яким
vision of
чином
the European
Європейська
Commission, how
комісія
they see us, and in what way
буде
the European
співпрацювати чи
Commission
вже
is going
співпрацює
to
з
cooperate, or
Україною.
maybe there is
Запросили
already existing
спеціаліста з
cooperation with
політичних
Ukraine.
питань
We have
Генерального
a
директорату Європейської
policy
комісії
officer
з
from the
питань
European
сільського
Commission, DG
господарства та
Agriculture and
розвитку
Rural
територій,
Development, DG
пана Мартіна
Agri.
Вандріна.
Martin Mandrilli is
Пане
today
Мартіне,
with us.
прошу, вам
It's
слово.
over to you, Martin.
Yes, thank you very much. I will try to share a brief presentation that I made. So let me see whether I succeed. Share. Just let me know whether you see it.
Yes, but not yet for the full screen.
Not yet the full screen.
Yeah.
But I'll do it like this.
Yeah, it works.
Good. Okay, good. So thank you very much for the invitation for this event, and also good to hear what your ministries are doing already. That sounds very encouraging. I just have a brief presentation on the common agricultural policy, and let's say a bit on the future, because that is, I guess, interesting from your side, but I need to explain a bit about what we do today to understand, I guess, how we get forward. Just for everybody to understand a bit how we make policy in the EU, and the terms will come back in the presentation. So first of all, when a proposal is made, it's made by the European Commission, only by the European Commission. I work for the European Commission, so that's, let's say, my part of the thing, the right of initiative. But we don't take an initiative just like that. I mean, I do not wake up in the morning and think, what kind of policy shall I do? We talk with all kind of different citizens, stakeholders, NGOs, experts, and we discuss with them, and they give us advice whether we want it or not. I mean, so we take all that into account when we make our policy. When we have made a proposal, that proposal goes to the European Council, which is there are ministers of agriculture in this case, and to the European Parliament. And they discuss about the proposal, and the two of them, the Parliament and the Council, they take a decision. And then when there is a decision, so when there is a law, an agricultural law, so to say, then the implementation takes place by the member states. That's called shared management. So it's not the EU. I'm not going to the farmer to tell him what to do. It's the member states who implement it. And then, of course, there is some form of control. That is what we do, the European Commission. And of course, ultimately, when we do not agree, we end up in the Court of Justice to see who is right and who is wrong. So that is mainly how the policy is made in the EU. So important to know that it's not just Brussels who does it. There is a European Commission first, and then there is a Council and a Parliament, and they decide on the policy, and the implementation takes place in the member states. Then the current situation. So how does the agriculture policy look like? First of all, it's important to know that we have, for the moment, we have two funds. It's not guaranteed that that will remain, let's say, going forward into the future, but there's one fund which is EAGF. It's a guarantee fund. It provides for income support and market support. It was already mentioned in the previous presentations that there is market support and also now rural development. So that's from another fund. It's called the EAFRD, and that's a fund for rural development. So that's where we finance our rural development activities. And there are some other, let's say, smaller categories, which is, for example, crisis management, which you need in agriculture. There's a school scheme, so let's say where we provide fruit and milk products to school pupils, and a promotion fund as well to promote, let's say, European products, either on the internal market or also to external markets. But the biggest share of all this funding goes to what we call national strategic plans. So that's important because also Ukraine is already working on a national strategic plan, I understand. So that is sort of already the way we work. So it's very much in line with how we work in the EU already. And in that strategic plan, we do indeed combine both the income and the market support and the rural development. So these national plans, they are proposed by the member states, so not by us. They are proposed by the member states, although in the legislation there are a number of, let's say, there's a framework which they have to stay within, what they have to do, what they cannot do. And then when they come to us, to the European Commission, with their plan, which is then in line with the legislation, at least that's what we also check. Then if it's all fully in line and they reach a number of objectives that they have identified as a member state, then we approve it. And then it's then indeed implemented, as I showed you in the previous slide, by the national authorities themselves. So in this case, it will be Ukraine or the member states that will implement their plan. For now, the current plan that we have covers 5 years. It started in 2023. And it defines all these policy instruments that each member state want to use. It can differ per member state, but they have to reach a number of objectives, either economic objectives, so let's say income policy for farmers, environmental objectives, and also sometimes social objectives. Like, for example, we have a problem in the EU with generational renewal. So member states have to design plans to attract more farmers into the sector. So that is how it works now. Let me see, we go to the next slide. So this, I think, is one of the two most important slides, just to explain, and then I'm trying to make the link with, let's say, Carpathian farmers, which I think are in general relatively small and which are in mountainous areas. So let's focus a bit on that. So we have, in these strategic plans, we have three main elements. One is the direct support, that's the support per hectare. Then, and that mainly, let's say, provides income support. Then we have sectoral interventions, which cover a number of sectors where we give specific support, like fruit and vegetables and wine and olives. And then we have the rural development with a number of activities that are listed here. So the ones that are important for, I would say, if I think about the Carpathian farming, I've never been in Ukraine and never been in the Carpathians in Ukraine, but I've been in the Carpathians in Romania. So I guess that to a certain extent that is comparable. But what so what I first want to say is that in the basic income support, which is, so there's a payment per hectare, which is a support for income to farmers. And it can be 100 euro per hectare, 200 euro per hectare, or whatever. I mean, it's just a different amount per member state. And if a farmer wants to receive those amounts, he has to fulfill a number of good agricultural and environmental conditions. I think we have 9 conditions. So which makes, let's say, you have to comply with a number of green elements to get these payments. And the other thing which is interesting in this basic income support is the small farmer scheme. And I think I have no idea, of course, exactly of how the economics is in Ukraine, but from the EU perspective, this is a relatively small amount. So it's 1,250 euros maximum. So if a member state chooses to make use of the small farmer scheme, it brings a certain simplification because you put together all kind of support schemes, and if it's not higher than 1,250 euros, the farmer gets this 1,250 euros, and there's a much lighter control regime. So it's a bit easier. So, but then you support smaller farmers and give them a certain basic or part of their income. So that's a small farmer scheme. Member states have to choose for this themselves. And there are now only, I think, 6 member states who have chosen for this. So the other member states in the EU, the other 21, they do not use this small farmer scheme. But it would be something to consider, of course, in a plan from the Ukraine if you look specifically at Carpathian farmers. Then the other thing to support, let's say, smaller farmers is that the second dot is the complementary redistributive income support, which basically says that you take money from the basic income support from the bigger farmers and you redistribute it to the smaller farmers. So let's say the first 10 hectares get, let's say, an additional amount. That's this redistributive amount, which can also be used there. Although I think we have to also be a bit clear on what we understand for a small farmer. I mean, a small farmer in the EU would probably be a farmer which has less than 5 hectares. So I just understood that you were talking about 120 hectares. That would be quite a substantial farmer already in the EU. But as I said, it's defined at the national level. So if your definition is 120 hectares and less than 100 cows, well, then that's a small farmer. So that is perfectly possible already in the current system. Then we have support for young farmers, and then the second green thing is the eco schemes. That's a novelty in the new agriculture policy that started in 2023. So we do pay farmers if they do a number of activities which are considered good for the climate and for the environment. So, and that has to be, that's then in our basic act, in the law, it said a member state has to do at least 25% of all their direct payments has to be used for these eco schemes. And that's indeed what most member states do exactly, this 25%, not more. And then we have some coupled income support, which is used for certain production that is at risk or not very profitable, like for example, extensive grazing in mountainous areas, which is usually not very profitable in the EU. So if you give them an additional coupled support, then farmers may continue and earn a decent income. Then on the rural development, I'm not going to go through all the investment, but there are, let's say, first of all, the agri-environmental intervention. So it's the difference between the agri-environment climate interventions is not, and between the eco schemes is not very big. I mean, it's just paid from a different pot, basically, but all this is just an annual amount per hectare. And then there is support for areas of natural constraints, which is also relevant, I would say, for the Carpathians, because that sort of finds its origin in what we used to have decades ago on a payment for mountainous farmers. So if you farm in an area which is due to its altitude or slopes or other reasons, maybe that is too dry or too wet or whatever, so it has natural constraints, then you can give an additional payment from the Rural Development Fund to these farmers. So that is how we, let's say, support, let's say, the environmental actions, but at the same time also the income dedicated to a certain group of farmers. So that is this part, and then to give a bit of an overview of how much we spent on these different areas. So here we have the light green area. It's light green because this is this basic income support that I showed you. So the income support for the farmers, which are linked to these good agricultural and environmental conditions. That's half of the money we spend on the CAP. And then there's 32% we spend specifically on environmental expenditure. And that's this eco schemes, the agri-environmental schemes, and the ANC payments for the natural constraints, so the mountainous farmers. And here, for example, there's another thing which I didn't mention previously, but it's green investment. So if you invest, you can do a normal productive investment, but also an investment in make your farm greener, and that's then also counted. So let's say about 32% we spent on green payments, so to say, and so the rest are basically focused on other aspects, mainly the economic aspects, so to keep farmers farming and have a decent income. Here again, in another way to explain, so this is the direct payments, which is with all the conditions, the good agricultural environmental conditions, which we call conditionality. And then on top of that, so once as a farmer you have your direct payments and you have fulfilled all these agricultural and economic and environmental conditions, then if you do something as an eco scheme or for a climate and environmental scheme, you have to do additional things. So they come on top, so they are greener than what you do under this conditionality. So that's also important to understand. Then, in order to stick to my time, it's almost up. We look a bit ahead. Looking ahead, of course, the Common Agriculture Policy is fixed until 2027. So we talk about the new policy that starts in 2028. And of course, we need to know how much money there is available. And the money is available, that's a bit of Brussels jargon, but it's called the Multi-Annual Financial Framework. That's sort of the multi-annual budget, which starts in 2028 and runs until probably 2034 with the MFF. So where we are now, so here in 23, the new CAP started. We have had European elections this year, and we are now forming a new commission. So as we speak, there are 6 commissioners today that are being interrogated by the European Parliament and to see whether they can become a commissioner. So only after that, so after tomorrow, we know whether we have a new commission or not. So most likely they will start on the 1st of December. And in the meantime, in 2024, we had a strategic dialogue on agriculture, where a number of stakeholders sat together and sort of designed the ideas of where the new agriculture policy should go to. It's not a document from the Commission, it's a document from these 29 stakeholders, NGOs. And based on that, we will make a vision on the future of agriculture and food. So the new Commissioner for Agriculture, if he is appointed, will do that in the first 100 days. So that will be in the beginning of March, that'll be finished. Then there will be proposals for the multi-annual budget, which will also be done by the European Commission mid-2025. And on that basis, so based on our vision, on the strategic dialogue and on the amounts that we have available, we can make a new proposal for the Common Agriculture Policy. And then usually we have negotiations between the Council and the Parliament, as I showed in your first slide, and that might take hopefully not more than 2 years or 1.5 years, because then it needs to be implemented as of 2027, and then it can start in 2028. And then by 2029, we have the new cycle of elections, because we have every 5 years elections. So that's where we are. Here I repeat this a bit, the vision, the multi-annual financial framework, but I want to focus here on the last part. So somewhere in the second half of 2025, we will come with a new Common Agricultural Policy proposal. And the idea is that, I mean, we look at what we have today. We do not want to change too much, because all the changes also are complicated, if you want. So we really look at what doesn't go well and what can be changed. So the first thing, who needs the support? Because now we pay support for every hectare. And there is, of course, the idea of making these payments, to reduce these payments for larger farmers. That's called capping or called degressivity. So that is one thing we look at, but also on the other side. I mean, if you look at the very small farmers who just have a small plot, you know, that for the growing their own vegetables, are they really farmers? Do they need support? Or have a small farmer have just a little farm on the side, but have also another job? Do they really need support? So we want to look at that. So let's say to focus the support better to those who need it. That's not an easy task, huh? By the way. And then the second thing is the to improve is the ecosystem services. So this eco schemes that we have now in the first pillar for the direct payments, where I say you have to do at least 25%. We might look at whether this can be increased because we still want to reward farmers who work with nature. That's the general trend of let's say what's in the mission letter of our commissioner. So we want to look at that, which then of course automatically means if you give more for a payment for eco scheme, so a farmer does something additional and gets money for that, you have less for the income support because we do not count on having a lot more money in the next MFF. Because, well, as you maybe know better than we know, but also in the EU, we want to increase our spending on defense, so it has to come from somewhere, and probably it comes at to the detriment of the agricultural budget. Then we want to look at investments. I mean, how can we use EU money to sort of leverage additional private investment so then you can do more with your EU funding? And it can be both investments in productive investments, but also green investments. Usually the green investments are not so rewarding. The return on investment is low, so there you definitely need, we think, a certain government intervention or let's say support. Then our new commissioner would like to focus on generational renewal. Like I said, it's becoming a problem in the EU. We have less and less young farmers. So how to keep them in the business or how to attract new ones. Simplifying the policy is high on the agenda of our commissioner president, but just to see how we have now 10 objectives that have to be in the strategic plans. Maybe we can reduce the number of objectives as an example to simplify things. And also the crisis management, we have to look at it. We have a small amount of money there actually, and it's very difficult to, I mean, with all the crises that we had in the last couple of years, climate related or geopolitical, to really serve everyone well. So we have to see whether we can have a better approach there. And of course, sitting in this meeting with Ukraine, we have to prepare for an enlargement. So there is also an important task for us to already take that into account in the new common agricultural policy. So I think I want to keep it at this. I mean, I'm happy to take questions, but this is sort of the general line. And well, I hope I put the important things forward: small farmers, environmental payments, ANC payments that you can work on for your future plans. Thank you.
Дякую, пане Мартіне.
Thank you,
Дуже
Martin.
цікаво. Я
It
думаю,
was
що
extremely
ми
interesting,
цю
and I do
презентацію
believe that this
зможемо поширити,
presentation we
поставити
will
на
be
сайт,
able to
на
share
свій
to have
сайт,
it
для
on
того,
our
щоб люди могли
website so that
користуватися
people
цією
can use it.
інформацією.
And use this
Принагідно, я хочу
information.
сказати,
And
що
using
наш
this
експерт,
opportunity, I would
пані
like to mention that
Ольга
our
Ігнатенко,
expert,
протягом цього
Olga
року
Ignatenko, within this year
вивчала дуже
has been
ретельно спільну аграрну
learning very
політику і те,
thoroughly
що,
joint agrarian
власне, у нас
policy,
на сайті
and
можна
on our
подивитися
website you can
публікації
actually
з
take a look at the
роз'ясненнями.
publications with
Можливо,
explanations.
це,
Maybe
допоможе
it
тим,
will
хто
help those
цікавиться цією
who are
темою.
interested in
Але
this topic. But
для того, щоб влитися в ось цей
to
рух
fully
розширення
understand that
Євросоюзу,
EU expansion, we need to, and to fully start it, we need to be in the loop. We need to understand what is going on in the European Union and with the joint agrarian policy. And we also have to understand whether our institutions are ready, whether they are capable of reacting on this policy.
Проводимо цей захід
Why
спільно з проектом
we have this event together with Institutional Policy Reform for Smallholder Agriculture Project, because during our meeting, during our trips to Transcarpathian, we have heard lots of stories about this project from specific farmers, and they really getting support from this project. But now I would like to give the floor to the key expert of IPERSA EU-funded project, Richard Rozwadowski. And as far as I understand, he's going to tell us a little bit more about some general thing about institutional reforms under this project. Mr. Richard, you have the train soon. Maybe you're already there.
Hello?
Oh.
Dobre чути?
Can you hear me well? Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Well, I guess I speak in English because thank you for the opportunity as you have interpretation. Yeah, I'm near the railway station, so about to go to Kiev. I'll just say a few things, and you can put my presentation up.
Yes, I will now.
Yeah. While that's coming, the name of our project is Institutional Policy Reform for Smallholder Agriculture. So we emphasize smallholder. We're part of the overall idea of the EU, which is support for small farms. And
Richard, sorry, you are muted.
Okay, it's okay now?
Yes.
Okay, very good. Next slide, please, if I could. Yeah, so really what I'm going to do is briefly introduce some of my colleagues who are going to speak later in more detail about a few things. This just is an overview of what our project is doing. We are the main project for EU accession, working closely with the ministry. We have about 60 experts, nearly all in Kiev, but we have been doing quite a lot of work in Western Ukraine, Lviv and Zakarpattia, which is why Tamara has noticed our thing. So we're all about the development of family farming, small farms. We want to simplify access to financial resources. There are a number of credit lines coming online now. The EU is giving a lot of funding for budget support to Ukraine, so some of that goes into the subsidized credit schemes that are available, 579, etc. And there's some other activities like that. We're trying to develop the AKIS system, Agricultural Knowledge and Innovation System, and my colleague Katarina will talk about that a bit later. And again, we've been working with Lviv as a pilot oblast, and then our next pilot was Zakarpattia. So for those two oblasts have a good understanding, and we now want to share this across the whole of Ukraine. And knowledge and advice is obviously a key thing, especially this AKIS system that is developed in the EU. I'm not going to go through all of these, but we're working hard on value chains. We have a mission. We had a meeting yesterday in Lviv, and today in Uzhgorod, and it's about EU grants that are being given via FAO. And our experts from our project we have three experts involved in supporting FAO. We're providing the technical expertise. And before FAO were giving grants for small farmers, usually up to $10,000 or possibly $25,000. But now they're just starting a new cycle, which is something we identified. And that was because of the small scale of production, fragmentation of production. There's a real need to help farmers come together and consolidate their production. And so this program has grants of up to $150,000, but have to be matched 1-in-1 from the farmers' own funds, but that can be by credit, so we're helping them get credits as well. And the idea is really to create pack houses, centers to consolidate vegetables and berries. And we are visiting it's based in 4 Western Oblasts, and it's $2 million for the moment. If it's successful, we hope to share that across the whole of Ukraine. The previous speaker mentioned good agricultural practice. We are developing, or actually have developed, a draft code of good agricultural practice, which would be a voluntary manual. We're going to have discussions, a workshop in Kyiv, hopefully still this month, to try and finalize that. So it basically sets out EU directives, best practice, what the Ukrainian legislation is, and really it's a learning and training tool for farmers and advisors. So we'll be sharing information with you all when we know when that date is coming up. We're having a meeting with the Ministry of Agriculture today, exactly to finalize that. Then in Kyiv, we have about 20 lawyers that are working on improving the legislation or adapting legislation to EU. So that's a lot of work. It's, of course, not just changing the laws, but actually creating the systems. And our project is institutional support. So we're all about trying to help set up a payment agency, which is vital if Ukraine wants to get more proper EU funding and control and management, as a previous speaker actually said, that the payment agency and other such things like the Farm Accountancy Data Network, which is called Farm Accountancy Sustainability Network. So there's lots of things going on. And my colleague Valerie is going to speak a bit more about good agricultural practice. And later on, Taras from our project will also speak about geographic indication, which is probably the biggest impact that has been seen in Zakarpattia. And we've been dealing with a number of GI products, and they've been quite successful there. If we could have the next slide. I think quite important is the development of the State Agrarian Register. We've worked closely with the World Bank to develop this, and the subsidies that the previous speaker mentioned, the subsidies per hectare, subsidies per cow, are all going through the State Agrarian Register, and this is a big improvement for farmers. They have a lot of confidence that it's based on clear criteria. You either qualify or you don't, and it's not up to some official to decide. And that is being expanded. The State Agrarian Register is now the prime source where all states support, almost, and certainly all EU support, and many donors are trying to use the State Agrarian Register because it's a very transparent and useful system. And our next slide, and I can't see this. Yeah, that's it, right? Yeah, I'm on my phone and then guessing where the slides are. I got it now. Yeah, and there's just a slide about, and so any farmer, even small farmers who want to register, we much encourage them to do it because there is concrete support there that they can apply for, but you have to be registered. These grants that are going through FAO, again, farmers must be registered. Next slide, please. Just very quickly, it's up to the EU really to describe, but many people will ask, okay, we don't have a payment agency. How are we going to get support to Ukraine? The answer is it's already here and it's happening. The EU set up a Ukraine facility, and it's 50 billion euro, and actually it's already growing. And much of that is direct budget support to pay state employees and hospitals and something for the army, of course. And then these are approximate figures, but around about €8 or €9 billion earmarked for support to credit lines. So this will be EBRD, IFC, European Investment Bank, KfW in particular as a credit line for private farms up to 500 hectares. And then there's a substantial amount of money for technical assistance, and various implementing agencies will be involved in technical assistance, and that way may well grow. Was there? Yeah, and then as a support to that, there is also a partial credit guarantee scheme. One of the problems for small farmers, especially as the land is leased, is they have insufficient collateral, and obviously in a time of conflict, banks are very concerned about having usable collateral. So here the donors have put money into a fund to set up a partial credit guarantee scheme. So 50% of the collateral required by a bank can be supported through this scheme for farmers that don't have sufficient collateral. If we could have the next slide, please. I hope I'm not going too fast or too slowly. So this is just to give an example of what a pack house looks like. This is these grants for consolidation production that I mentioned earlier on, which we are now just starting with FAO in these 4 oblasts. And you know, this is just a picture of how they look. So it's really important for these small farmers to be able to bring their products together, sort, wash if necessary, pack, do the marketing, maybe store. And why that's important, every year Ukraine is getting improved access to the EU market. But that is a two-way street, and EU firms, especially Poland as a neighbor, Romania, but also France and Holland and others, of course, it's getting easier for them to sell their product in Ukraine. And once this war hopefully is finished, I think we're going to see increased investment from supermarkets, and they will require higher standards. And the danger is, as happened in Poland 30 years ago, Poland developed a large wholesale market with a grant from the Swiss in Poznan. It's the largest wholesale market for food in Central Europe. Turnover 2 to 3 million euro a day. And the Minister of Agriculture opened that and said, you know, I'm pleased to open this great facility, great support from Switzerland, and this will be a great place for Polish farmers to sell their produce. Now, in reality, in the first year, 75% of the fruit and vegetables in that market was imported. And the reason is simple. They met the EU standards. They were nicely packaged. The Polish farmers sold or tried to sell dirty carrots loose. The competitors from the EU were providing washed carrots, nicely packed in bags, very attractive. Now, it may be, as the Polish farmer said, you know, our carrots are better. We've got less chemicals and less fertilizer. But, you know, the buyers tend to buy with their eyes. But the result was that after 4 or 5 months, Polish farmers also started washing their apples. Maybe the next slide, and I'm just about to finish, I think. Yeah, this happens to be in Carpathian. We had a mission in the spring, and this is somebody who's it's a village with a lot of plastic tunnels. They produce most of the early cabbage for the whole of Ukraine. It's a very specialized region, good microclimate. And they're already doing it in an informal way, some consolidation. So farmers are bringing in their cabbage in this case, and they've got a shed and they're waiting for a truck to come and we'll load it. What we've suggested to them is the next slide. So in that same building, we've designed, our agronomists and value chain experts have designed a fairly simple scheme, cost of about $100,000, we would think. And in this way, they could bring in the product from the left side, do the sorting, cleaning, washing, drying if needed, packing, etc. Maybe a cold store, so it's at a good temperature when the truck comes and gets it. And then this would benefit 50 small farmers, and would really make the system much better. Currently, the trucks come from Kiev or wherever, and it may be raining and they can't pick it, or the vegetables are very, very wet. It's difficult to handle. And that's all I've got to say. But my colleagues, Valerie on good agricultural practice, Katya on the ACIS knowledge and innovation system, and Taras on geographic indications, can give you much more detail. So thank you. Next slide, Richard. That's it. Yeah. And if there are any questions, I'm more than willing to help.
Ріхарде, дуже дякую.
Yes,
Я
Richard,
думаю,
thank you
що
so much for
ваші
this
співробітники
presentation.
Катерина
And I believe
Тарас
that Valery,
далі розвинуть
Katerina, Taras,
цю
they will
розповідь.
further
Власне,
delve deeper into
здається,
all of the things that you have
було
pointed
запитання
to.
до пана
I think that
Мартіна
there was a
від
question to
Франчески
Martin from
в
Francesca in
чаті,
our
але я його
chat
вже не
box.
бачу.
However, I'm not sure I can see it now. There was a question from Francesca
Добре,
in
якщо
the
будуть
chat,
запитання,
but
значить ми
yes,
I did send a reply in the chat.
Ага, окей. Добре, якщо будуть запитання, давайте в чаті, ми
in
все рівно
case
будемо
you
все
have some
записувати
questions,
і
anyways, we are
будемо
going to
шукати
record
відповіді на ці
everything, so
запитання.
we will
Наразі
definitely
дякую.
provide answers to the questions that you have.
Ага.
Thank you for joining us. Yes, we have the question repeated in the
Ось
chat
запитання
box.
було.
Yes, that was the question from Francesca on support of pastoralists.
Окей, давайте продовжувати.
I think it's time for us to move forward.
Сесію.
We're going
І
to
зараз
continue
я
with the
хочу
session,
надати
and now
слово
I would like to
представникам
give the floor to
проекту
the
ІПРСа,
representatives
пану
IPRSA
Валерію
project,
Бондарчуку, потім
namely Valery
Катерина
Bondarchuk,
Крикуненко.
then
Вони
Katarina
нам розкажуть про
Krikunenko,
Кодекс
and
належних
they will tell us
сільськогосподарських
more about the Code
практик,
of Good
досвід
Agricultural Practices. They
Євросоюзу
will
та
share the
значення
EU
для України.
experience and
Прошу,
focus on importance of this experience for
Дякую.
Ukraine. So it's over
Катерина,
to
тут ви.
Valery and
Дякую,
Katarina.
пані
Are you
Тамара.
with us?
Чутно
Yes,
мене?
thank you.
Так,
Tamara,
чути
can you
тебе.
hear me well? Yes,
Перш за
we can
все,
hear
хочу
you loud
подякувати всім
and
учасникам
clear.
за
First
те,
of all,
що
I would like to
знайшли
express
можливість
gratitude to all
приєднатися
the
в такий непростий
participants
час.
for
Я думаю, що
joining
захід
this session in
буде
these
корисним.
difficult times.
Ви
I hope that
отримаєте
you will
нову
benefit
інформацію
from this
і також відповіді на ваші
discussion, that
запитання.
you will
Також щиро
acquire
подяка
more
нашим колегам з
information and you
ЄВСЄ
will
за те,
hear
що
answers to your questions. I would like to express gratitude
знайшлась
to
така
our
можливість
colleagues
для
from
такої
the
корисної
Green
колаборації,
Dossier
тому що
for
насправді
this
ми робимо
very
одну справу.
interesting
Ми
collaboration
допомагаємо
as
малим
we are focused
агровиробникам
on the same
адаптуватися
thing. We
до
are
сучасних
helping
вимог
small
виробництва і
farmers
до
to adapt to
вступу
new
в
conditions
Європейський
of
Союз,
production
до
and
роботи в нових умовах.
integration of
Якраз
Ukraine
належні
into the
виконання належних
EU following proper
сільськогосподарських практик,
practices.
слідування ним
That is why if to speak about GAEC, this is one of the priority direction. This is the possibility for our agricultural producers to be competitive in the European as well as the global market. So we have the definition of these practices. It is considered to be ecologically safe, economically sustainable, and socially appropriate, which is reflected in safe and healthy food and non-food agricultural activities. This is these are GAC pillars. We already learned about common goals of the EU described by the previous speaker. However, I would like to highlight that with climate change, environmental protection, preservation of landscape, biodiversity preservation, quality of food, and health issues, we can see that they are the principal directions of development which are implemented under the European Green Deal. To inform farmers about such practices in Europe to prevent pollution, especially to speak about agricultural sources of pollution, to prevent pollution of air, soil, and waters. There is a set of guidelines and codes. The first one is a code of good agricultural practice for farmers to be used by all the farmers. Also, there are gap pilot schemes. Also, there are some other guidelines or recommendations, some information, some additional complementary materials for farmers to be able to understand how to work, how to be committed to these principles of good agricultural practices. We have 700 certified goods and more than 200,000 certified producers in 135 countries using Global Gap, which was initiated back in 2007. It helps producers to enter new markets and retail chains. They try to work with such producers which abide by these standards, and they also help to achieve preservation of the climate, and they are not polluting the environment. With regard to GAP, this is a global movement. Those countries, they are lagging behind, which didn't join good agricultural practices for resilient agriculture. Namely, it is very important for our producers to be well informed about good agricultural practices and also to participate in certification procedures to follow the standards. In 1975, in the European Union, the legislation on improvement of water quality began. By 1998, 6 additional directives came into force, and also we have a nitrate directive as of 1991, and in Article 4, as well as in Appendix 2, to this directive, it is stipulated that it is needed to develop the code or the codes of good agrarian practices, which are to be used by farmers on a voluntarily basis. These codes are related to protection of water, soil, and air. And as I've already mentioned, all the farmers can get access to these materials. They are provided with these materials to follow these regulations. Here we can see the provisions to be reflected in the codes. In general, there are 10 requirements which are highlighted in the code. I'm not going to list all of them because you will have access to the presentation, but largely it is about nitrate management, working on farms, how to develop farm plans, how to record information. It is important to use high quality chemicals. There are many simple rules, simple ideas, but they make it possible for
for farmers, greatly improve the quality of their produce, and also to reduce substantially emissions of harmful substances in the atmosphere. In 2000, there was a framework water directive adopted, and in 2005, we already had some reference responsibility for subsidies in agriculture. If you really want to receive a subsidy, then you need to take a good care of pollution issues, and you need to follow these guidelines and respect requirements. As Martin has pointed out previously, environmental sustainability and protection is one of the key directions in the CAP for the current period. Therefore, we have some stimuli for farmers. These are direct green payments and also some other measures for agricultural development, commercial pressure, social pressure. Works in that way that we really need to have sustainability of the agrarian sector. And when we implement GAP, it is really one of the ways for us to showcase a sustainable approach. You have already spoken about the fact that such standards and practices of GAP is a global movement. That is why those who do not follow the principles of GAP, they will encounter some hardships when it comes to sales of their produce. It is important for Ukrainian farmers to be well informed and to follow GAP. Richard has also mentioned that now we have been working on development of a document for Ukraine. This is going to be a set of recommendations for farmers, and it is our hope that in the foreseeable future we will present this document with participation of NGOs, citizens, experts, and that in the future it will be possible for us to provide these materials, these recommendations for farmers, for them to be able to utilize this information. These are other resources which could be found on the internet. There's a lot of information. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for having me here at this very interesting event. We hope for further cooperation and for us continuing working together, helping our farmers to adapt to present day challenges and also to adapt to the accession.
Дякую, пане
Thank
Валерію.
you.
Тобто
Thank you,
отут на останній
Valerie.
сторінці якраз
So
були,
the very
мабуть,
last page, I think
ті
that these
відповіді на
are
ті
the
запитання,
answers
яких
to
ми
the
назбирали протягом
questions,
року
because
дуже
we
багато,
have
і
received
ви,
so many
мабуть, є
questions over the past
тією
years, and I
організацією,
believe
яка
that you
може
are the
конкретно
organization to
на
address
на
to,
запитання
because you
відповідати.
are the ones who know answer to these questions. Well, probably not all of them. However, a great deal of questions could be addressed by us because we have a plethora of experts engaged in different areas, in different fields, supporting EU integration processes. These are the people who definitely have the expertise needed. Another project is Principle. It is really important with regard to support of Eurointegration in the agrarian
Дякую дуже,
sector.
пане Валерію.
Thank you.
Катерина буде виступати?
Katerina, do we have Katerina with us? Yes,
Так.
absolutely.
Пані
Yes,
Катерино.
yes, Katerina, over to you now.
Дякую вам. Дякую вам, пані Тамара.
Thank you,
Вітаю всіх
Tamara.
сьогодні присутніх. Хочу подякувати
Welcome everyone
за цю
present
чудову
here
можливість.
today. I
Хочу
would like to
подякувати
express my gratitude for this
представникам
amazing
проекту Green
opportunity to
Dossier.
representative of
Ось
a Green
зараз ми з вами
Dossier
поговоримо
project,
про
and we are going to
наступний
talk about
наше питання – це
our
система
next
сільськогосподарських
matter.
знань та
It's
інновацій.
a
Підскажіть, будь ласка,
system of it's a knowledge and innovation system. Do you see my slide?
Так, видно, так?
Yes,
Супер.
okay. Great.
Так, сьогодні продовжуючи наш
Today,
блок
continuing
спільно з Валерієм
our
виступом,
block of
хочу
speeches
розказати
together with Valery,
про систему
I would
АКІС як
also like to
ключовий елемент
mention
ефективної
to tell you
трансферу знань та
about
інновацій в
AKI's
сільському
system
господарстві.
as a key element of effective
Ось
transfer of
і
knowledge and innovations in
які є
agriculture.
одною із вимог
That is
перед
one of the
вступом в ЄС.
conditions
І ось хочу
for
пояснити,
joining
власне,
the
що
EU.
таке оця
And I would
система
like to explain what
сільськогосподарських
is
знань та
this
інновацій. Це,
system of
власне, мережа
agricultural knowledge and
організацій
innovations.
та
It is
осіб, які
network of
створюють, поширюють та
organizations and
використовують
people
знання та
that
інновації в сільському
use,
господарстві.
create and
І
spread knowledge and
відповідно до
innovation and
європейського
agriculture. And
досвіду, АКІС
according to
включає в себе досить широкий
European
спектр учасників, а саме це є наукові
experience, I guess,
установи,
and
які проводять
lots of
дослідження та
participants.
розробки в
It's
галузі сільського господарства,
research
це
and
безумовно
scientific
освітні заклади, які
institutions,
навчають
it's
фермерів та інших
educational
працівників
institutions that are
сільськогосподарського господарства.
teaching farmers and
Це
other
такі гравці,
representatives of
як, до речі,
agriculture. These
СНУРви,
are
які
such
надають
players as
консультації та
advisory
підтримку
services that are
фермерам.
providing
Також це
consultations and
промислові
support to
організації, які
farmers.
розробляють та
It's
виробляють
industrial
сільськогосподарські
organizations
технології та
that are
продукції. І
developing
урядові
agricultural products and
організації, які розробляють та
technologies, and
впроваджують політику та
NGOs
програми в галузі
developing
сільськогосподарського господарства.
policies in the
АКІС як
agricultural
система
sphere.
відіграє
AKIS as a
надзвичайно важливу
system
роль у
plays
розвитку
extremely
сільського
important
господарства.
role in
Вона, власне,
development of
допомагає
agriculture.
фермерам
It is
підвищувати
helping
свою
farmers to
продуктивність,
increase their,
ефективність
to
та
boost their productivity,
конкурентноспроможність.
effectiveness,
І
and
АКІС також сприяє
competitiveness.
сталому
AKIS
розвитку сільського
also
господарства
promotes
та також збереження
sustainable development of
навколишнього
agriculture
середовища
and
через трансфер
preservation
новітніх
of
наукових
environments through
підходів та
transfer
розробок.
of
І, на мою
cutting
думку, що
edge
АКІС можна розглядати як
approaches and
сучасну
developments. And
динамічну
AKIS can
модель,
also be viewed
яка
as
є, власне,
modern
цією
dynamic
ланкою, яка
model
поширює
that is
сільськогосподарські
actually
знання
this
і, власне,
chain that spreads
дозволяє
agricultural knowledge
співгравцям
and
і
lets all of the
особам окремо,
players and
оскільки в центрі цієї моделі є фермер,
individuals, because farmers
об'єднуватись
are
і
in the center of this
співпрацювати для
model, to
покращення обміну
uh,
інформації, знаннями між
cooperate
виробниками
and to share
та
knowledge,
знаходить
to exchange
можливості для
knowledge,
впровадження
and to find the
інноваційних
opportunities for
рішень на ряду
implementing
проблем,
innovation
пов'язаних з сільським
solutions for certain
господарством.
range of problems connected with the agriculture.
Чому, власне, система сільськогосподарських
Why
знань та
a system
інновацій
of agricultural
актуальною для
knowledge and
впровадження
innovation
саме зараз? Я
is
вже згадала,
relevant for implementing right now?
Україна
As I have already
є
mentioned, Ukraine
кандидатом в члени до
is a country,
євроспільноти,
candidate
і
country to
стати
be member of
членом
the
ЄС – це є
European community, and
процедура,
to
яка
become
не
the
може
EU
статися
member,
одразу.
is a procedure that
Після того,
does not
як
happen overnight.
країна-претендент виконує
After the
певні умови для
country
членства, вона повинна
fulfills
впроваджувати ці
certain
правила
membership
та норми
criteria,
в
it has
своє
to
життя.
implement it
І
in
тому
their being. And
сільське
that's why
господарство та сільський
agriculture
розвиток, а
and
власне спільна
agricultural
аграрна
development,
політика
in
ЄС є
particular
одне
joint
із
agrarian and EU
найважливіших
policy,
і
is one of the
найвтратніших
most
сфер
important
діяльності
and
ЄС.
um,
І для
on the
порівняння,
draining
понад
spheres of the
40%
EU. To
загального
compare, more than
бюджету
40% of
ЄС
general budget of the
фокусується,
EU
власне, на підтримці
is
спільної
focused on the
аграрної
focus
політики.
of
І, безумовно,
joint
кожна
agrarian
країна,
policy. And
яка
of
робить
course,
такий
each
вибір і
country
стає на шлях до
that makes such a
євроінтеграції,
choice and
повинна
starts
розробити
EU accession
національний
process has to
стратегічний план
develop
спільної
a
аграрної
national
політики
strategic plan
відповідно
of
до
joint
цілей
agrarian
спільної аграрної
policy
політики,
according
про
to
які сьогодні говорили
goals of joint
колега
agrarian
Микола
policy
Мороз
that
з
our colleague
Міністерства
Mykola
аграрної
Moros from
політики.
the Ministry of
І
Agrarian
ось
Policy has been
спільна
talking about
аграрна
it today.
політика
So, joint agrarian
включає своїх
policy
10 цілей,
encompasses 10
перечислювати не
goals.
будемо, часу
I'm not
обмаль,
going
і одне
to
із них – це,
list all of
власне,
them because we
трансфер
have
знань
limited
і
amount of time,
інновацій.
but one of
Тобто
them
це
is
є
transfer of
просування
knowledge and
знань і
innovation. So
інновацій,
it's
це
promotion
є
of
10-та
knowledge
ціль
and
спільної
innovations.
аграрної
It is the
політики,
10th
яка
goal
була
of joint agrarian
додана
policy that was
десь
added
2 роки назад і
around two
закріплена на
years
рівні
ago and
законодавства ЄС. А
fixed on
власне,
the
нова
legislation,
спільна
EU
аграрна
legislation
політика
level.
базується на трьох
Joint
нормативних
agrarian
документах.
policy
Ось
is
ці
based on
регламенти.
three
Власне,
documents,
виділений
these
жовтим
reglaments,
регламент
and the one that is in yellow, Reglement
2021-21-15, в якому міститься норма.
2020-2115, has the
Стаття
norm,
114, яка
Article 114,
описує те, що кожна
that
країна повинна
describes
описати
that
свою
each
систему
country
сільськогосподарських
has
знань і
to
інновацій і її
define their
впровадити.
own system of
Відповідно,
agriculture knowledge and
ця
innovation
норма
and
закріплена
implement
на
it.
рівні
So this
регламенту.
norm
Тому
is
АКІС це
fixed
не
on the
є
level of
щось
level
придумане
of
зараз тут в процесі
regulation. So AKIS is
інтеграції
not
після
something
МХАУ.
that
Це
has been
є
made up in the
одна
process
із
of integration.
систем,
It is
яка
one of
діє
the
в Європейському
systems that
Союзі і
is
яка
active in the
включена,
European Union and
повернусь
that is
назад, в
involved. Let me get
власне
back a little
цілі
bit
спільної
here.
аграрної
to the aims of joint agrarian policy. So what can be the AKIS in Ukraine? What is the modern system for improving knowledge flows to actualize innovational process for the benefit of Ukrainian agrarians and society? This demo model from which our AKIS research has started was developed and all main stakeholders were defined. I have mentioned them at the beginning of my speech. That is the group of bodies of central and regional local government. It is also a group of players that are representative of scientific and educational establishment. It's farmers, farmers organizations, NGOs, and of course, that's also private sector. What are the advantages of AKIS approach for Ukraine? As I have already mentioned, it's strengthening of flows of knowledge around the whole Ukraine. It's incentivization of consultations. It's building bridges between practice and research, and also Ukraine will join all the resources of the European AKIS community through joint policy and other networks. We are now in the process of discussion. The working group was created in the ministry on implementing the system of knowledge and innovations. The profile Deputy Minister and Mr. Mykola Moroz are their head. So this group together, we are now cooperating intensely with on implementing this model, and we have presupposed outlined range of strategic moves, but I would like to present it shortly right now. So of course it's a central function in the system of AKIS that will be provided by the Ministry of Agrarian Policy, as it is in the experience of the EU countries. And since Ukraine is pretty big country and it is pretty difficult to manage AKIS of all regions, we offered the model of 8 regional AKIS center on the basis of regions. This concept has not appeared out of nowhere, because range of Ukrainian researchers grouped, scientists grouped such regions based on their economic indicators, and that was the model of our national AKIS that was suggested, with coordinational center in the Ministry of Agrarian Policy. The next central player is the AKIS platform that will gather all the knowledge, all the information, that will be a point of contact for information exchange for all AKIS players, and it will be available. It is already being developed and supported by our project for everyone. And there will also be AKIS board. It is advisory board of stakeholders. And this coordination model will cooperate with AKIS network in Europe and with 8 regional hubs that include 25 regions of Ukraine. And here we have groupings of such regions based on scientific approach, conceptual development of regional innovative ecosystems. And here is an example, just a second. Here, there is this regional division. And why do we have such split, such division? Because we had the opportunity to test such approach of ecosystem in Lviv and Carpathian regions, and we understood that this approach of grouping regions is, under current conditions, is the best approach for implementing and launching the system. What are the strategies of implementing AKIS model, and what is our vision by 2030? We have 6 goals, 18 tasks, but of course all these goals and tasks will be discussed at the working group with all AKIS players, and our vision that by 2030 Ukraine will have a modern, effective structure that will be able to respond on current and future challenges in agriculture and development of agricultural territories, and increase income of farmers. What are our goals? It is creation of beneficial political environment. And this we will have first coordination, increased potential on the level of region and community. To define this, the next goal is effective digitalization of ARCIS, because we also plan to create on the basis of State Agrarian Register ARCIS platform that is now in the process of under the process of the development, and all ARCIS players will be able to place information and have access to it, but of course after registration in the system of State Agrarian Register. So the first goal is reliable advisory services that will be effectively contacting and cooperating effectively. The fifth goal is sectors of research and farmers consultation to improve the process of information exchange. And the sixth one is that ARCIS in Ukraine is recognized as a positive contribution in increasing revenues of farmers and rural residents, because there is a transfer of knowledge and innovations. So we have also a range of tasks. I'm not going to take lots of time here because we have limited time. And to sum up, I would like to say that the system of agricultural knowledge and transfer of knowledge and innovation is a unique approach that actually plays a role of a facilitator, and this facilitator of changes. And through this system, it's pretty easy to transfer information for the farmer, because in fact, all EU community accession is focused on small and medium agrarian producer, and their support is a precondition for successful development of agricultural territories and joint agrarian policy that is focused on that. And that's why this tool, this system, will let us group, coming back here, all the players of ARCIS system that will be able to strengthen this farmer and to make him highly competitive and desirable. Let's say the product will be desirable on the EU market. Of course, adhering to all sustainable development goals and all the conditions of Green Deal. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak, and thank you for attention. If you have any questions, please, I'm ready to take them in the chat. Thank you, Katarina, for such a comprehensive, detailed explanation. I believe that it will be useful for our listeners, and not only our today's listeners, but also we need to spread this information further, because really it's an amazing resource. And now I would like to give the floor. We are a little bit outside of our timeline, but we expected that. I would like to give the floor to Olga Ignatenko. She is our expert, and as far as I understand, she will add a little bit more to proper agricultural practices, a little bit of ecological component. Olga, please. Thank you. Thank you. Let me share. Presentation.
Дякую. Я хочу коротко
Okay, so
поговорити щодо
thank you.
екологічних умов
I would like to
підтримки
talk a little
в
bit
рамках
about
САП. Чому це важливо? Тому що це з 23-го року дуже
ecological
змінило
conditions in the
взагалі
framework of
умови,
SAP.
хто
Why
і
is
як
it
може
needed?
отримувати
Because
ці
it
допоміжні
changed
виплати.
a
Це
lot who
стосується
can
тільки
get some additional
підтримки
payments. It's
direct income
only
support.
about
Тобто це
direct
те, що
income support. So
виплачується
it is
тільки
what is
за
paid
гектар в рамках
per
підтримки
hectare
доходу фермера.
within support of
Ці умови зараз
farmers'
обов'язкові
revenue.
для всіх,
These
хто має
conditions are
або
now
хоче отримувати цей тип підтримки від спільної аграрної політики.
relevant for
Тобто
those
нема
who would like to
виконання умов,
get
нема
this type of
моніторингу,
support. So
неможливо
there is
отримувати
no,
взагалі
if there
будь-які
is
субсидії
no
або підтримки.
monitoring, no
Два типи
condition, then
стандартів, які
subsidies
існують
cannot
в
be
statutory management requirements. Це
achieved. There are two types
стандарти
of
управління
standards,
в
statutory
агробизнесі. І вони
management
вже
requirements,
наразі
and
обов'язкові
they
для
are
будь-якого
already
виробника в рамках
obligatory
спільної аграрної
for
політики. Тобто
all the
це те,
for
що
every
ніхто не може
producers. This is something that no one can omit. Good agricultural environmental conditions. This is something mandatory for those who receive support and the direct income support from joint agrarian policy. GAC has 9 mandatory standards, but there might be more. SMR has 11 standards and they're pretty fixed. How to implement all of this? That's how this national strategy takes into account. So it will be different. It will vary from country to country. But strategic plans might be implemented not only on the national level, but regional. So there might be some separate standards for different regions if Ukraine chooses the way to develop a regional strategic plan. Now a little bit about SMR standards. There are 11 of them. Most of them they're about biodiversity, water, using of plant protection products and welfare of animals. But I would like to focus here a little bit of water. It's SMR standards 1 and 2. And they're about phosphate contamination. These are standards of proper good agrarian practices that Mr. Richard and Mr. Valeri were talking about. This is considered to be voluntarily, but they have to be implemented in compliance with the EU legislation. And separately, standards 7 and 8 about using of plant protection products, it will be pretty significant change from what we have currently in Ukraine, because we have different conditions in the European Union. They are more rigid, stricter concerning the list, how it can be controlled. Getting back to GAC, there are 4 big groups. It's climate protection. It is mostly about carbon, and it is also additionally to the fact that SMR requires soil protection and biodiversity protection. I would like to talk a little bit what we have here. Climate, it's very basic things. So the first GAC, it's about proportional share of rangelands, and there might be certain change to use rangeland for something else, but it should be compensated somewhere else, and this rangeland should be done from something else. Why? Because in the permanent system, they accumulate carbon, and it's a very effective system concerning soil protection and climate stability. But for Ukraine, it will be less relevant, because in our case, it should be on such territories. Everything is already ameliorated there, and it will be pretty difficult to map it, but it might change in the future. And legislation prohibits the burning at all. Water GAC, it's about water protection lines. It's just additional lines in water bodies where no fertilizers and plant protection products can be used, just for protection of those water bodies. Some states go farther. There are minimum standards. Some of them require additional plant coverage. It depends on how the country is going to implement this policy. Soil protection should be very clear for us. It's regulation of harvesting. We know it pretty well. Our legislation is talking in details about that, but it is not always observed, unfortunately. It is also about minimum coverage of soil, especially in sensitive period. This is a needed requirement to decrease soil and wind erosion of soils. We remember that we had this dust storm that took part of the soil from one region to the other. Permanent coverage is something that can prevent this, and of course, crop rotation, we know about that. We have certain recommendations, but it becomes mandatory within GAC, and certain plants should be provided.
Стандарт вимагає певну частку
According
агроугідь
to
просто
standard,
додати,
some lands,
перевести
according to
з
the
продуктивної
standard,
системи, тобто,
have to
наприклад,
be taken
доганки,
from the
у
productive
непродуктивну
system,
систему.
from
Наприклад,
arable to non-productive one.
покрити якоюсь перманентною рослинності. Це
That
можуть
means to
бути
cover it with some
лісосмуги, це
permanent
можуть бути якісь
vegetation, some
смуги
forest
папоросів,
planting,
щось інше. Там є багато варіантів, яким чином це можна
wild
зробити.
plants, or many other things which could be done here.
4% від
3%
агроугідь,
is the
варіанти, і як це
minimal
буде реалізовано, це вже
scope
питання,
of
як це буде врегульовано
land.
в наших
However,
стратегічних
of
планах, які
course,
мають
it is
бути
about
посунутися.
our strategic
Проте
plans and about
ландшафтне
requirements,
різноманіття, таке як
landscape
жовті лісосмуги,
diversity
смуги
for
біополосів, це стає
points,
абсолютно обов'язковим
wild
як частина ландшафту,
plants.
плюс
It
неможливість
becomes part of
забороняється щось робити з
landscape,
цими угіддями в період розмноження тварин.
as well as
У нас це
hedgerows, as
період тиші,
many other
наприклад.
things.
І
And we
дев'ятий
also
гек, він
have
просто
some
щодо перманентних
silent periods.
лужних екосистем в
9
рамках
gag
Натури 2000 це наша
is
смарагдова мережа. Тобто їх просто не можна
about
перетворити.
rangelands,
На відміну від першого геку,
also
де це просто має
meadows,
бути
well,
постійна частка.
grasslands, because in the
На
first one
таких
there has
територіях
to
вони
be a
просто не
certain
можуть
share, but
бути
in these territories
змінені
they have to
взагалі.
be
Вони мають бути перманентні.
preserved. There
Держава може
could be no
вибивати
change.
допоміжні якісь стандарти в рамках
Also,
ГЕК, це
there could be
залежить від
some
держави, від того, що
additional
робити.
standards,
Проте, знов таки наполягаю,
state-based,
це мінімум, це
depending on the
мінімальні
need.
речі.
However,
Вони
this
вже не
is the
змінюються.
minimum.
Вони будуть
This
тільки
is something which
розширюватися,
is
і в
not going to
майбутньому будуть
change.
більш жорсткі
There
вимоги,
will be
більш
something added. There will be more
більше
stringent
стимуляції для того, щоб перейти на
requirements
більш
and more
екологічні практики і змінити
stimulation to
взагалі
have more
систему
of
агровиробництва на більш стійку.
environmental practices and to have more
Якщо є
sustainability
запитання, в нас
in
в сторінці
agriculture. If there are any questions
Джона
at
Досьє є
our
деякі публікації
web
цього
page,
всього,
you
і ми
can
запропонуємо
find
на сторінку Єврокомісії взагалі
information,
про
and also
це.
you can go to
Дякую.
the European Commission's website to learn more about it.
Дякую, пані Ольго. Ну, я
Thank you,
сподіваюся,
Olga.
дуже швидко прочитала
Yes,
презентацію. Я
that was a very
сподіваюся, що
fast
українські,
presentation,
українські учасники
and I hope
зрозуміли,
that Ukrainian
ну, а ті,
participants
хто
will understood the
англомовний,
importance
сподіваюся,
for
що
our
встигли перекласти.
English-speaking audience. I hope that you managed to understand what has been presented.
Такий
And now I would
інформаційний
like to
ресурс,
introduce to you
який
another
є до нашого
information resource,
просування
which
до
is very
Європейського Союзу,
important
який
in
підготовлений
Eurointegration processes.
нашими партнерами,
It was
партнерами
prepared
по
by
цьому
other
проєкту.
partners for
Львівська
this
організація суспільства і
project,
довкілля. Я
the
запрошую зараз до
organization,
слова пана Андрія
Society and
Андрусевича,
Environment,
який, власне, відповідає
and
за
over to Andrei
цей
Andrusevich,
ресурс.
because it is
Прошу,
his
пане Андрію.
line of work, this resource that we have started with. Yes, I will try to be brief. I know that, well, we have some delay to speak about our agenda, but I will try to be really brief. I will share information about the information resource we are supporting and in what way you can benefit from this resource. I hope that you can see the presentation pulled over. Yes, is it on the screen? Yes, it is. This is a web portal. Here you can see in the chat also the address. We launched it last year, supported by Free International Renaissance Foundation. And here you can see more information for this platform. This is the interface. The core of this portal is a database of EU acquis in protection of environment and climate change. However, cooperating with the Green Dossier, we also decided to add some additional regulations on agriculture. All of that is aimed at preparation of Ukraine to the EU accession negotiation process, implementation of the EU acquis, and so on and so forth. As I already mentioned, that we use the acquis database, which is the core. And in this database, you will find the regulations. There, the information is updated. You can see the name, full name, a shortened name, Eurolax link, also
implementation access, some other documents. On the one hand, you can read about very general information, the goals, some other things, and for the expert community, of course, you can get access to direct links to garner more information, to learn more details about these bylaws, implementation laws, or regulations, directives for implementation of different EU acquis. You can search for acts using a search feature. There is a special search engine using keywords. There are different sections also. You can use categories as a filter. We have 10 categories, roughly speaking. These are horizontal issues, policies, waste, air, sustainable agriculture was added, and policy as well. These are not regulations, not directives or decisions. These are strategies of some sort, etc. With regard to your activities, here we have agrarian and food policies added, as well as for acts on sustainable agriculture. You can see these categories, you can open these blocks, and there you will find 4 different regulations. Further, you can check the information they contain about these regulations, when they were adopted, whether there is translation. Then, if there is one, you are going to find a link to the translations into Ukrainian. If no, then you will find it in Eurolax database. On top of that, for the convenience of users, it is also possible to download a regulation. You can see it in the right upper corner. This is one of the regulation. This is council regulation on the farm sustainability. You can also download it for further use, or you can select a category, the entire database, or a separate category. You always find this button of downloading the entire database. However, if you put a tick near the category that you need, then you can download these documents. So it means that you can download all the database, or you can download some separate regulations. Well, here you can find some document on a key, and this document has some 300 pages. In this guidance, you will find different materials, different sections. In line with the database, there will be a separate chapter on agricultural policies or regulations. I think that it is very convenient. On the website, you can find general information about Ukraine's accession, about different decisions taken. I call on you, I encourage you, I invite you to use this platform, because the greatest value of this platform is that you can find brief descriptions, you have references, you have links. I think that it is extremely useful and convenient for those people who are responsible for decision making. And also, I think it is useful for experts, because this is about quick access to direct documents. Thank you. We encourage you to use this tool. We have made it for you. Thank you, Mr. Andrasevich. Thank you, Andrei. It really appears to be extremely user-friendly. I encourage all of you to use Compass web portal information and counseling support. Now we move forward. We have another block of today's discussion, please. We have been speaking a lot about preservation and support of traditional farming in the Carpathian region. We know that traditional forms are related to rangelands, shepherding, cheese making, transhumans. Actually, that is everything that in the world is known as pastoralism, actually. This term is not so popular here yet. However, we tried to understand it better, to understand the concept behind it at our website in the library section. You can find materials, some basic materials by Nadia Shevchenko about pastoralism around the globe and in Ukraine. Make sure that you use these materials. Right now, I would like to invite to the floor Francesca Passetti, who is a co-chair of the regional IYRP Support Group Europe. Focal point, Spain nomination transhumans, UNESCO ICH, intangible cultural heritage. She's also international projects coordinator. Francesca, I hope that you have joined us and I give the floor to you.
There. Thank you. I'm trying to share. Do you see my screen?
Yes, but not in full size.
Okay.
Would you
Yeah,
start?
I'll do it. It's here. Is it okay?
Yes, perfect.
Yes.
Okay. So today I will talk about, I know we are short in time. I'll keep my timing. Although I'm speaking about 4 different matters. The first, the matters will be to integrate support of regional development and traditional farming of the Carpathian in international projects, international initiatives. The first thing I shortly will speak about the declaration of transhumance. Transhumance is when the animals go from one part to another. Into as UNESCO intangible cultural heritage. It's a traditional practice that is in serious danger of disappearing in the whole world, and therefore it needed to be declared. I will go very quickly through the different steps. We began talking about that in the years 2008, and in 2019, in December 2019, the first recognition was between Austria, Greece, with a team leader that was Italy. At that time, many other countries were interested, and 7 other countries were able to join. So the 5th of December 2023, it has been the first extension has been declared, and actually there is a running with Romania, who already is declared. As you can see, here are the 10 countries, and Romania is the team leader now for the 3rd wave that wants to be declared for 2026. But the nomination is not the goal; it's just the beginning. Yeah, all the work that has been carried out for research, creation of synergy, involvement of communities and institutions. This is the very important part that transcend nomination, and the safeguard plan is now the most important thing. I very shortly resume the 4 main points of this national and international safeguard plan. One is the documentation, then there is transmission, promotion, and international partnership. Concerning international partnership, that's one of the things we are doing today, and also coordinating meetings of communities with FAO and other organizations. I will just shortly speak about Spain. There is interconnected livestock trails, almost 125,000 kilometers, which are protected since 1273. And the law has been renewed recently, 1995. And if there are interest, of course, I can send in English the translation of this law protecting the paths, which are very important. Just to give ideas, in 1994, one of the traditional paths that were used for centuries have began to be used again, and you can see 1,800 sheep and 200 goats crossing the city of Madrid. In 2007, we had the first world meeting of transhuman shepherds through Madrid. And in Paris 2022, this was not a traditional one. This was just organized for, but it's one of the ways to let know about. And in the Champs-Élysées of Paris, we had some 400 sheep crossing. And here you can see the Spanish from Cantabria, from north of Spain, participating in the Champs-Élysées. A second matter I will talk about is the International Year of Rangeland and Pastoralism. As you already probably know, a little bit more than half of world's land are rangelands. And pastoralists are present in 75% of all the countries, and estimate about 500 million people. So their production is very important on economical, environmental, cultural, and especially food security purposes. But they have not been considered, lack of representation, lack of investment, and very neglected by public policies. And therefore, Mongolia, who is a pastoralist country, asked in 2019 FAO to declare 1 year the Rangeland and Pastoralists Year. And this was declared by the United Nations during the General Assembly of 2022. Why an IRRP? Why an International Year of Rangeland and Pastoralism? So the most important points are to increase worldwide the understanding of the importance of rangeland for what I just said, food security, economy, environment, and also the cultural heritage. To fill the knowledge gaps, to promote science-based policy legislations, and to mobilize people worldwide to have the new opportunities. Just very shortly, what is a pastoralist? It included nomadic and transhumans herder, agri-pastoralists, and anyone who manages livestock or wildlife for animal products, mainly meat and milk, but also wool or leather. So what do we want to achieve? We want to create awareness on the contribution of rangelands on all the forms I just said, to break myths and misunderstandings, to fill knowledge gaps, to have an effective communication, monitoring, collaboration, and networking. That's what we are doing also today. And especially promote evidence-based policy and legislation. So who is IRP? For the moment, already 102 countries are supporting, and there are included in this moment more than 365 organizations of the United Nations, NGOs, regional and supernatural pastoralists organizations. So you can see it in the webpage. Just a short description of the structure. The structure is a general IRP list. We have a global coordination group. And what is most interesting now for you is that we have 10 working groups on 10 matters. And I put the 11th with wool on in red because we will create it now in the next month. And we are divided in 11 regional support groups. Africa has 3 groups, as Asia has 3 groups, North America has 2 groups, Australia, Arctic region, and Europe, we have 1 group. So the gender working group, for all the working groups have written concepts notes that you can find in the IRP webpage. Just a small description of the gender working group. We have created a sub-working group on films, and we have made 3 lists on film that can be found in this webpage. One on pastoralism in general, one on pastoralism and gender, and one especially on camelids, which as this year, 2024, is the International Year of Camelids. So the idea is to make activities up to and of course also during the International Year for Engine of Pastoralism, which is 2026. So joint research, publishing, policy briefs, pastoralist gatherings, social media campaigns, films, photo exhibitions, innovation fairs, side events, and imagination. Do whatever you can think of in order to let know about pastoralists. One of the things we are developing is an interactive pastoralist map, because worldwide there's no country, not one country, which is knowing how many pastoralists it's have, not even Germany or US, no country. So we are making this map. Actually, we have 900 groups, and our East European countries are quite lacking, as you see. So the purpose of the regional action plans is to create awareness and help coordinate national activities and to spearhead regional and multicultural activities. So last year we signed a memorandum of cooperation between the Carpathian Convention and the IRP. So now I will talk on two projects we are working on and where also Ukraine, if there's interest, can participate. One, we created a UNESCO club on transhumance. How this was funded, I just have to close the door, sorry. This UNESCO club is part of the International Safeguard Plan. So the idea is to communicate collectively on the cultural and societal value of transhumance, strengthen a system of transmission of the knowledge and know-how, promoting multi-stakeholder and disciplinary networking, and work with young people. So there's an executive committee, we have corporate world citizens, we have partners from around the world, we have institutions, and we have FAO as honorary member. So which are the main UNESCO club actions? Training, sensibilization, and a think tank debate. Yeah. So last but not least, I will tell you about an Erasmus Plus project that is called Eco-Trans. This has been won last year. It began in September 2023 and will finish on 2026, exactly for the International Year of Religion and Pastoralism. So the club, UNESCO club, is part of this Erasmus Plus project. The main idea is to provide young future breeder with a context-specific knowledge and know-how they need to ensure a sustainable, bearable, and fair way to manage livestock and also transhumance. We are 6 partner countries, 2 of the first nomination, that's Italy and Greece, 2 of the second nomination, that's France and Romania, and 2 of the next nominations, Morocco and Mongolia. So we have several high schools or vocational schools and universities to help students to discover transhumance practices and its challenges of sustainability. And the results are that people are trained for their promotion, employability, and inclusion. So the activities and deliverables are, we have generation renewal. So just last week in Greece, we had an intergenerational meeting in Larissa, at the University of Larissa, where the young people had made a mini clip on transhumance. France will be deliver a memento, an awareness rising module. Romania will prepare, and there will be a meeting next year in Romania, a serious game that's called Transhumance Game. It's a serious game between all the actors of a place. It's a very, very interesting game. And in Italy, there will be a culture and taste buds. a booklet on recipes, traditional recipes, and modern ones. And there will be also a meeting between students, their teacher, in all these three countries, Greece, Romania, and Italy. Thank you very much. I'm open to whatever question you might have on all what I've been telling.
Дуже дякую, пані Франческа. То дійсно дуже
Thank you,
цікаво.
Francesca. It was really interesting. And for Ukraine, I believe this topic of global support of pastoralism is pretty new and not that simple. So we have contacted with the organization that is accredited in the UNESCO on non-tangible cultural heritage, and this organization is dealing together with our Ministry of Culture, dealing with expertise and preparation of nomination to the list of intangible cultural UNESCO heritage. I believe that we have Alexander Butsenko with us. Yes, I'm here. Something is wrong with my video. So if you can hear me, yes, we can hear you. I can hear you well, because something is wrong with my camera, some technical glitch. But first of all, I would like to express my gratitude for the invitation and for Francesca Sposetti amazing speech. Francesca, I don't want even to add anything to the speech because everything has been covered, but I would like to mention several words about Ukraine concerning nomination and concerning the third wave. This expansion of a file on pastoralism that is already in representation list of UNESCO. Well, you know, we should mention that this tradition of transhumance and shepherding in Ukraine has deep roots, and it is developing not only in Carpathians but around the whole territory of Ukraine. So that's why, of course, Ukraine, on the request of on the call of Romania to join this multinational file, Ukraine agreed, but to join, we need to fulfill certain conditions. First of all, we need to have official agreement from the institution responsible for the nomination of an intangible cultural heritage is Ministry of Culture and Strategic Communication. Ministry of Cultural and Strategic Communication got the letter approval to the Ministry of Romania, Ministry of Culture, that Ukraine will join with pleasure. The next condition is that elements of pastoralism should be included into the national list or national list. But as it has been mentioned by Francesca Passetti and many others, that this exact element or tradition of pastoralism includes many components. These are products and instruments and cultural and natural spaces. So that's why in Ukraine it is connected with the element of pastoralism, but we already have three elements interconnected with that. These elements were introduced in 2022 and 2023. We are talking here about so-called element as Husul Brenza. These are traditional skills that were submitted by Rahiv area of the Carpathian region and Ivano-Frankivsk region. Then there is such an element as culture of traditional shepherding of Bessarabia and knowledge connected with that. Here we are talking about a steppe, transhumance, and lots of villages connected with this exact element of intangible cultural heritage. And one more element from Carpathians, this is element of traditional holiday when after transhumans sheep come back and they measure the milk, the amount of milk provided by the sheep. And that's why we have already three elements in the national list, and we have some other communities, in particular from Ivano-Frankivsk region, that are ready to introduce the elements that will be called traditions and cultures of pastoralism. Well, one more precondition is agreements of the carriers of these practices that introduce this element. We here are not talking only about shepherds and not only about owners of a sheep, but also producers, everyone who might be involved in that sphere. So basically, this whole community talking about this element. Of course, this permissions, then since we have three elements, but we would also ask everyone to get these permissions. One more important component is a plan of protection that should be submitted by those societies that would like to apply the nomination. Actually, this protection plan encompasses actions that will promote protection and development of this element for those who consider it their intangible cultural heritage. And here we are talking about this opportunity of interdisciplinary approach, where we will need to take into account Ministry of Agrarian Policy, Ministry of Environmental Environment and Natural Resources Protection, because non-tangible heritage or life heritage is developing. It is not stable and in time, and that's why innovative technologies and approaches that we were talking about today, it is extremely important. We concerning protection, technical, economical, and other opportunities for supporting communities that are practicing this element. And also, it is extremely important to take into account biodiversity, protection of rangelands and pastures. So, while making such protection plans, we need cooperation of many stakeholders, of many organizations, of NGOs and public sector. And of course, what else can be mentioned here is that the next step will be additional materials. It is a preparation of films that are also available in Ukraine, but taking into account that we will have widening of this international nomination, we have already discussed with Romanian colleagues and with many other colleagues that from Ukraine, this film will be only 1.5 to 2 minutes, and the people will tell about their vision or peculiarities of the development of such practice in Ukraine. And of course, there will be pictures and text preparation. It is the most important thing, text for nomination that will be included in the general text and that will be prepared in Ukraine. We hope we hope for this intersectoral cooperation. We have already agreed with Romanian colleagues that we will have this preparation in December, January, because now all of the countries are preparing for interagency committee UNESCO that will take place in Paraguay, and they will view separate nominations that will be included into international lists. Our nomination or expansion, this third wave should be submitted by 31st of March 2025 for it to be really included and viewed at the interagency committee at the end of 2026. From this year, from Ukraine, two elements are viewed. It is Ukrainian paisanka and Kobzar tradition. 2026, I think we will also join this multinational file of nomination connected with pastoralism, and I hope that it will be expanded successfully. What, just a few more words I would like to mention, as Ms. Francesca has already mentioned, that first and foremost it's international cooperation, and that is of the utmost importance. But of course, it is also research. and adding of our element representative UNESCO list. It's experience exchange. It is extremely important because, yes, traditions and the length of traditions might be similar, but we have our peculiarities, and some peculiarities in certain countries help us understand how we can fight our current problems, because we still have this question how to make our youth interested and how to share our knowledge, and of course joining support programs on the national level. And I hope that it will be launched after the end of the war in Ukraine. And on the international level, some programs, as it has been already been mentioned by Francesca, already there. Some programs are on the level of UNESCO and on the level of other international funds. And concerning International Pastoralism Year, this when this step is already done, it will be easy, of course, to unite those who can take part in those working groups, task forces that Francesca has been talking about. It's researchers, practitioners, and so on. It will be a little bit easier, and we will not need to have such a harsh procedure, such as with submitting nominations to UNESCO lists. So from our side, since I'm representative of non-governmental organization Democracy Through Culture accredited in Ukraine, and also research organization Institute of Culturology of National Academy of Arts in Ukraine, we are ready to join this work and to take active part. And I hope that we will be able to find here some ways of intersectoral, inter-ministry cooperation. Thank you for attention. Sorry for the fact that my camera was not working. I wanted to show myself, but I couldn't. Thank you, Alexander. I see we have a pretty versatile discussion today, but we would really like so that those people who are listening us right now from Carpathian regions, farmers, so that they hear about these opportunities to join global movements. And it is extremely important for Ukraine, and it's great that we have such organizations that are trying to promote this process and encourage this process. And actually now, in our program, we should have speech of Hanna Antoniuk. She is representative head of our office in Lviv, and Taras Antoniuk, who is also working development expert of IPARSA project. As far as I understand, Hanna has some problems with connecting. Yes, yes. Hello. Hello, the participants. Hanna unfortunately does not have the opportunity to join right now because she's at the business trip in Zakarpattia. That's why I'm going to be here instead of her today. I will have the presentation about our project, and we would like to ask all the farmers, all the participants to actively join. And this is an interesting project that is a tool of your further development. Our project has been launching for 3 years already, and it is directed towards grant support for small and micro farmers. It is the project that is conducted by FAO together with the EU financing. Actually, our organization is present in Ukraine, has been present in Ukraine for a pretty long time, and since the beginning of Russian invasion, focused on supporting programs of emergency response. It's aid to rural households, it's seeds, feeds, chickens, financial support vouchers, support to agro producers, was in the fact that these are seeds protection equipment, it's winter seeds of wheat, it's generators, so some targeted measures. And we also have programs directed towards in governmental projects. It is buying equipment for laboratories in Ismail, relocation of a bank of resources. And our project is actually the investment program. It is directed towards long-term support. You have already mentioned such projects as a geographical indication and place of origin. So this is all subject of our activity.
It is comprehensive, competitive, and cost-effective creation of value-added chains in rural fisheries and forestries. And it is really important for the Carpathian region. We are present in 4 regions. This is Lviv, Ivano-Frankivsk, Transcarpathian, and Chernivtsi regions. The areas of activities for all the regions, they differ slightly. However, on the whole, I would like right away to say that we have already completed 2 cycles and we are planning the 3rd cycle. We will scale up our activities. This project will be scaled up to other regions of the country. The first and the second grant competitions had the budget of $5.3 million. As far as what is offered under the program is concerned, these are grant programs for personal rural farms amounting to $10,000 and also for small and micro agriculture agrarian producers, those who are registered as individual entrepreneurs or as legal entities or consolidated farms. The amount of the grant is up to $25,000. Investment priorities are agricultural equipment, systems for watering, hothouses, solar panels, processing, of course, different equipment for labs, for milking, specialized equipment, for wine making, transportation, aquacultures as well. There is one of the conditions to participate. This is participation of the farmer themselves. We can see different criteria of participation. Here you can find information about dairy growing and vegetable growing, and also for winemaking, honey and brinza. You can see that these grants are different with regard to this personal contribution of farmers, but this is an obligatory contribution, and it is in the form of funding. It is not about equipment or some other goods. It is about financial resources to be co-invested into this project. Here you can take a closer look at the geography of our project. We can see how active Zakarpattia and Lviv regions are. Also, we would really like other participants of this program to be more active
with regard to implementation of the program. The results of the first grant cycle is more than 133 implemented investment projects with the budget of 61 million hryvnias. The average sum of grants for different grant windows, because we have a small grant, a small award, $5,000-$10,000, and a big one, $20,000-$25,000. The average sum was more than 12,670 US dollars. In this distribution, you can see that 58% account for legal entities and 42% these are individual or entrepreneurs or natural entities. We can also see added value chains. Honey producers have been very active. Vegetable growing, wine making. What comes next is berry growing and aquaculture. In terms of funds being invested, here you can also see the breakdown, which appears to be quite even. Agricultural equipment, transportation, tractors, specialized equipment needed for honey and wine making. These are greenhouses, watering systems, solar panels, refrigeration equipment, also some additional goals as ventilation systems, vacuum packing, and other something that is specialized for cheese making or and for aquaculture. The second grant cycle, here we have over 100 projects implemented. The budget is almost 50 million of hryvnias. You can see very similar parameters for small and big grant windows. The average amount is slightly bigger. It is over $15,000 here. You can also see the statistics on applicants. 2/3 were legal entities. The remaining part, these are individual entrepreneurs. It could be explained by the fact that in the second cycle, we also had milk and processing added as separate branches. We have received numerous applications. You can see it on the diagram that, well, milk is on top of the list. Aquaculture ranks second because we also decided to involve include other regions of Ukraine for this particular category: honey making, wine making, berry growing, vegetables.
Якщо агрегувати, власне, саме всі цілі використання
onto different
цих напрямків,
directions and what was used for investment. On top of the list, we have agriculture equipment. Equipment for honey making comes next, and also some other fields. Another one which was very active in terms of investment is solar units. Here you can see some pictures from the projects implemented. You can see different directions represented in these photographs. Some containers which were used for wine storage, special cisterns for honey, and also you can see small trucks for transportation of cheese. This is the information. These are our contact details. Feel free to reach out directly. We have a team working with us, the team responsible for the application procedure. This is the email address where you can forward your letters to. I would like to outline that we are working on the launch of the third grant cycle, which will have even greater scope and more parameters, more directions will be factored in all applications since the first cycle are recorded in the state agrarian register. That is why if you have failed to register, by now we encourage you to get registered because all announcements, all terms of participation, we are finalizing them and finally approving them. It will be possible for you to submit your applications after the registration. You will also receive newsletters. You will be invited to participate in information gatherings. In November, December, we are planning to launch the third cycle of the project. That was very brief about our program. Certainly, it promotes your development of your farms. If you belong to any of the categories described, we encourage you to participate. Thank you for attention. Thank you, Ivan. It has been a very practical presentation. I hope that it will resonate with the speakers, that they will find it useful as well. When we went to the Transcarpathian region, we could see the results of your program implemented. We could see all the equipment, how it is being utilized. We also had some tasting sessions. That is why we really have some success cases from the Transcarpathian region. Well, from the Carpathian region as such. Well, primarily it was about the Transcarpathian region, but we mentioned it on our website. We share the success cases not only on our website, we translated the cases into English, and you can find these resources at the website of the Carpathian Convention. We are grateful to the Secretariat of the Carpathian Convention for making it possible. Now it's over to Taras Antoniuk. Do we have Taras with us? Yes, so let's just focus on some very practical points, with regard to geographical identifications. Yes, geographical identifications, which is primarily a tool of preservation and development and future of the culture of pastoralism. And it's great that we are finally talking about that we are spreading awareness about it. Our project, the project of the European Union IPRSA project that you have already heard about. We had some practical information about achievements during the first part of the session. I would like to focus on GI, on this topic, which is quite a narrow segment of the general project. However, we understand that there is a lot of interest from the European Union, and it started back in 2017. This is this is about the Carpathian region. It is about transhuman shepherds, and this discussion opened at the level of traditions and preservation of these traditions. And geographical identifications is one of the elements of preservation. It is an economic instrument to preserve these traditions, these traditional jobs. And thanks to this tool, it is possible for us to have added value and to have some economic effectiveness. With regard to transhumans, We rather call it traditional mountain, traditional mounting, animal husbandry in this region. Well, tradition, it belongs to Hutsulshtina territory. Transhumans and the culture of pastoralism is when owners of a certain group of cattle during summertime, they had with their herds in early spring. They had shepherds and they had paddle herds moving, and they were responsible for taking care of the cattle in valleys, grazing, milking, and cheese production. In our case, it is brinza. It was not very profitable, so to say. Because these were some small families, and there were some families who gave their cattle or livestock to these shepherds. They made some products out of it, which was consumed. So when we started working with them, it was a declining tendency because for shepherds, they didn't see any cost effectiveness in that. Everything was declining. That is why they were not very interested in continuing doing that. They moved abroad, or they were trying to find a different occupation, a different job. Unfortunately, they didn't have enough incentives to preserve the culture. And we know that when people cannot take care of the livestock in summer period, they sold the cattle, sheep, livestock, and in mountain areas we could see fewer and fewer numbers of animals, and we can only imagine the impact it had. However, as part of the Eurointegration process, we can see new trends emerging in this story, because one of very important elements in the association agreement, it was dedicated to geographical identification and intellectual property protection, intellectual rights protection, for preservation of traditional farming practices. In 2017-18, we started working on this. It was very practical in the beginning. We had to go to all those farms. We started with Rahi, we went to mountain valley farms, and we were creating a roadmap for production. We tried to engage people, to encourage them to get united, to defend their profession, the traditional way of farming that they represent. I think that 90% of lands are rangelands, and there is very often no other types of in this region rather than actually transhumans. That is why, having these conditions, we started working on the first geographical identification in Ukraine to be created, and Hutsul sheep brinza is the first one. It is also due to the creation of the Association of Producers of Traditional Highland Cheeses. We also have cow brinza from Ivano-Frankivsk. Their products are very similar on the one hand. However, we work at the level of the ministry. We had roundtable meeting about these products, how different they are, and it means they need to separate geographical identification these products, these two different types of cheese. Let's also speak about economy. Finally, we can see some economic growth because, as I mentioned, there is a difference between cow and sheep cheese brinza. With regard to cow brinza, there were some attempts for people to self-organize, and they were trying to sell their produce and to make a living out of it. So it means that people were more interested in grazing cattle.
It could have been a separate economic entity, and at the same time, everything is a little bit more difficult with the sheep brinza because this potential economic entity, Polonina household, was without the product in the end. And in this context, we offered producers to choose a little bit different way, the way of fabrication, when we offered them to create certain centers with equipment where people, owners of livestock, have the opportunity to sell their products or their cheese for future processing, packaging, certified packaging, labeling, and centralization. So that's why this brinza became recognizable because certain attention was dedicated to the elements of promotion, and apart from that, very important element that is also marketing of economic tool was implementation of elements of rural tourism. So we have conducted work so that households were open for visiting, and in 2021 associations gathered and won the grant of Ukrainian Cultural Foundation and created a cultural touristic route. This is a route based on households open for visiting. It's understandable that it's summer routes, it's a set of locations that each consumer, each tourist visiting the region has the opportunity not only to buy this cheese somewhere at the store, but also go to highlands to communicate with producers, get the information about the product, and what is the most important, to see how the production, the manufacturing is going on, people who are producing it. And on the one hand, people get additional value as impressions and memories, and on the other hand, producers get the element on the one hand of free advertising because they didn't need to allocate money for some kind of advertising campaign and so on and so forth. They were contacting with their final consumers, and they had the opportunity to tell all the information, and additionally give them the opportunity to sell their products directly to the end consumer without retailers, without any mediators. So that's why they preserved this maximum amount of added value. On the other hand, consumers
засобами своєї комунікації, тобто
with the help of their communication, were telling their friends and relatives this information, and it had such an avalanche effect because after the creation of this route, supply was low, the demand was much higher than supply because people even almost got in trouble because they couldn't cover all that demand they have faced with. Now I can say that this grant project that colleague was talking about me became one of the part of development in Carpathian regions because it's the first in the history of Ukraine that was this opportunity to receive the grant, to receive material support for the activity, for the support of the activity was received not only by registered entrepreneurs, but households, so basically just regular individuals. And because of that, they got the opportunity to invest in some kind of infrastructural things, like households, just for you to understand, that's very basic conditions. Just some wooden houses where people live for 5 years, caring after livestock, and many of them actually used solar panels and improved such premises, and it improves their living conditions and the production component because lots of them got this opportunity to take the next step and to implement such an automatized processing. There is also a challenge connected with it because so for you to understand, for the last year, the amount of members of the association, both association, get a double insights, and actually these are all the people that we have to tell all the information as fast as possible, because it's not a secret that the main reason for them to join the system of geographical indicators was the opportunity to receive the grant, but it's a normal objective things that we can talk about openly, and they need this additional information in this express mode. They have to get informed about all those basic things. But once again, the goal of the project IFRS is so that in very close cooperation with FAO, their grant investment support, we strengthen technical component, educational component, because at the places all the participants getting the grants get constant consultations and additional trainings. So we have this opportunity to share our knowledge and experience that we have received during not so long-lasting but still pretty fruitful story of the first. And it's a greatest pleasure for me that now we are talking about preservation of non-tangible heritage, because that's one of the elements of protecting geographical indicator. If you're talking about mirror holiday, or if you're talking about traditions of renta production, it is also one of the consequences of European support of highland regions, because actors are still the same. These are those producers that we have started working on the geographical indicators. People working actively, they are trying to look for the opportunities, to search the opportunities. I do not see them in the list of participants of our today's event, but I will gladly pass them this information, because they are looking for opportunities for global communication with neighboring countries, countries of Carpathian region. They have already considering creating a special tourist route connected with brinza production because it actually migrated to Ukraine from Romania. And
що мені приємно сказати, зараз в них з'явився оптимізм.
I can say that people already feel optimistic now. They understand that it might turn into business, and it's not just business, but it's also preservation and of their culture, of their tradition. That's why I'm really grateful for this initiative. Once again, I would like to say that it is my utmost pleasure that the matter of pastoralism, highlight pastoralism in Ukraine is now being widely discussed. And I think that despite that COVID, that we had full-scale invasion that is creating lots of additional problems because lots of producers are the war right now and mobility is limited. But nevertheless, we have optimism concerning our future, and I think with joint efforts, we will have a light path ahead of us. Thank you, Taras. Of course, we are out of our timeline, but we have talked about lots of different topics today. And we had legislation, we had Eurointegration, pastoralism. You know, what is common in all these topics? They are all united by Carpathian Convention. And we are extremely happy that we are cooperating with the Secretariat of the Carpathian Convention. The Secretariat is supporting this project, and I would like to give the floor now to Eleonora Musko, who is the expert on political matters on the Secretariat of the Secretariat of the Carpathian Convention. Please, Eleonora.
Yes. So I hope you can hear me, and also you can see my presentation.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Tamara. We are very happy to be here today to participate in the meeting, and we would like also to thank Green Dossier for the continuous support and involvement in the Carpathian Convention activities. My name is Eleonora Musco, and today I represent the Secretariat of the Carpathian Convention. I will be quite brief because we are late, but I would like also to mention a bit more about the Carpathian Convention for the ones of you who don't know about the convention and our work. So the convention was established to coordinate the efforts in the Carpathian region with the main goal of environmental protection and sustainable development of the Carpathian region. It is also called the Kiev Convention because it was adopted and signed in Kiev in 2003 and then entered into force in 2006. The convention has 23 articles, including different thematic sectors, going from biodiversity to spatial planning, but also to sustainable agriculture and forestry and climate change. Here you can see all the articles. And this is the structure of the convention with at the top, the COP, the Conference of the Parties, so the ministerial gathering of all the countries where the ministries are deciding about the work of the convention, so adopting decisions, guiding the work of the Secretariat. And then there is also the Carpathian Convention Implementation Committee, that, by the way, we are going to have soon, next week on 2020, the 1st November, where all the focal points, meaning the ministries of environment of the 7 countries of the Carpathian Convention, are sitting and checking the progresses of the convention and the progresses towards the implementation of the decisions taken at the COP. As you can see here, also, we work through different working groups, implementing the articles of the convention. And we have one specific working group on sustainable agriculture and rural development, but also biodiversity, forestry, and tourism. Here you can see also the protocols adopted in relation to the different work streams. And we would like to mention to highlight that Ukraine actually has a strong record of adoption and approval of the protocols. You can see here that successfully Ukraine ratified and approved also the protocol on sustainable agriculture and rural development, but also on tourism and forest management. So the involvement of Ukraine from the institutional perspective and the adoption of protocols and strategic documents is quite good. The Carpathian Convention in brief facilitates the cross-border and transnational cooperation through the coordination of, it's a framework for policy coordination. The convention, it is also a platform for joint activities, and we are quite successful also in supporting the development of joint projects among the countries. And we act as a convention as a forum of dialogue among the countries. The Carpathian Convention serves as a bridge between the EU and the Carpathian countries, and it does this through the creation of shared environmental standards, through boosting cross-border cooperation, but also strengthening the EU influence in Eastern Europe. The role of Ukraine in the Carpathian Convention is very important, is crucial for the success of regional integration, and Ukraine inclusion in the convention provides several opportunities. From one point of view, there is the environmental protection and biodiversity component, meaning that the Ukrainian Carpathians is a home to diverse ecosystems, old growth forests and species that require transboundary efforts for preservation. On the other side, it is important the involvement of Ukraine for cross-border cooperation and cross-border projects, but also the presence of Ukraine in the convention helps Ukraine to align more closely with the EU standards in different areas like biodiversity, climate change, mitigation, and water management, just to mention a few of them. The role of the Carpathian Convention in Ukraine, the convention supports the country for the promotion of regional stability and cooperation, but also supports the EU accession goals of the country and tries to facilitate the access to EU funding and projects, depending, of course, on the different possibilities of the EU funding. To mention the mandate that we have as a secretariat of the convention, we wanted to highlight that recently there was, in 2022, there was the Carpathian Ministerial Conference, and the conference really marked the milestone in the regional cooperation. And there was two important actually declarations, one on biodiversity, but also another one important declaration adopted by the countries on the support of the countries to Ukraine and on the impact of the war on the environment in Ukraine, and then of course calling for stronger cooperation and assistance to the countries, and was supported by all the countries. The declaration reaffirmed, of course, the close cooperation with Ukraine, and they expressed the will to assist Ukraine in possible measures needed to address the environmental consequences of the war, but also emphasized the role of the Carpathian Convention as an important intergovernmental mechanism to involve the different countries and strengthen the cooperation among the different countries. And the declaration invites also stakeholders and partners to contribute to the process of green recovery and reconstruction of Ukraine for the future. The same as a follow-up to the ministerial conference at the 7th conference of the parties of the Carpathian Convention, the countries reaffirmed the importance of supporting Ukraine. So there are several decisions calling for support to Ukraine, and all the countries again they were supportive of these decisions and all together adopted these decisions. And here it's just a scheme of the work of the Secretariat, but the work of the Convention more in general in support of Ukraine. So going from the support to capacity building activities, civil society engagement, cooperation, and also exchange with universities, and trying to keep also Ukraine involved in the activities of the Convention, and to keep also the Carpathians, the Ukrainian Carpathians under review. The strengthening of the environmental governance, and we try to support also the building of partnership. And more specifically, I would like to highlight the different topics, so that some specific topics so that are very relevant for the convention, like for example biodiversity. The COP, there was a very important political instrument adopted by the countries, the Carpathian Biodiversity Framework, which is a policy instrument for the implementation of the Global Biodiversity Framework. And within this framework, of course, there are references to strengthen the work of the Convention on Biodiversity, but also the importance of cross-sectorial cooperation among different working groups. So like, for example, the importance of mainstreaming biodiversity into the working group of forestry, of agriculture, the agriculture working group, the climate change working group, and tourism, but also within the Carpathian Biodiversity Framework, there is a reference to the cooperation with Ukraine on protecting and sustainably developing the whole Carpathian region to address again the direct and the indirect impacts of the war in the Carpathian. This just to show you that since we work through a mandate from the countries, we have a strong mandate to continue working and supporting Ukraine. Talking about concretely projects, we are now working on a big project to be financed by the Global Environmental Facility. We are at the beginning of the first phase, and the project is focused on Ukraine, and it aims at enhancing the protected areas network for biodiversity conservation and development in Ukraine. And the project also aims at increasing the resilience to climate change and to create opportunities for sustainable development in the region, in particular for vulnerable communities of mountain settlements. And of course, the expected results should be aligned with the relevant protocols and articles of the Carpathian Convention that were ratified by Ukraine, as I showed you before. Here you can see the priority, the 14th priority Ukrainian Carpathian protected areas that were mentioned within the project. I will share the presentation, so I will be fast now because we are a bit late. Another important activity and project we are working on at the moment is EU LIFE program project. The LIFE Carpathian Transnational Strategic Nature Project SNAP. We submitted the first phase of the project to the LIFE program, and the idea is to have a long-term, up to 10 years, large-scale funding project up to 50 million euro for the implementation of the Carpathian Biodiversity Framework. And also here, Ukraine is fully eligible for the LIFE program. And we believe this project as well is a great opportunity for Ukraine in terms of capacity building in applying for LIFE project funding and opportunities. And it's also great opportunities for Ukraine for the alignment with the EU acquis on environment and for the implementation of the EU biodiversity strategy for 2030. There is another ongoing initiative to be presented at the Carpathian Convention Implementation Committee next week for the approval of the countries. There is the idea to build a Carpathian Peace Natural Park between Ukraine and Romania. And this initiative will be discussed next week, and we will see if the countries agree on that. We believe it's also another sign of the importance of the cooperation within the Carpathian Convention and the cooperation among the countries in the Carpathians. More specifically on sustainable agriculture and rural development, I'm not going too much into details. I was very happy to see that Francesca Passetti is also taking part in the meeting today. As she mentioned, we have a memorandum of cooperation. So we have an ongoing collaboration with the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralist Coalition. So we are planning joint activities, and Francesca also took part in one of our events on empowering pastoralist women in mountain areas that we had was held in March 2024 and attracted a lot of attention. We had many participants very interested in the topic, asking us to continue working on this topic and to strengthen also the work of the Carpathian Convention on this. And there will be an event planned for September 2025 on multifunctional farming. It's a conference, and we provided feedback on the conference concept as a secretariat together with the International Year of Rangelands and Pastoralists and the Science for the Carpathians, and experts from Hungary, Poland, and Slovakia in biodiversity, pastoralism, and traditional ecological knowledge are engaged in the scientific committee of the conference. Again, continuing on sustainable agriculture and rural development, there is also a new project proposal which aims to link biodiversity, pastoralism, and cultural heritage through education for sustainable development, with a strong focus on connections between these topics that I mentioned. Was submitted to the German Federal Environment Ministry, and we are quite confident that it will be supported. And then a collaboration with the International Council on Monuments and Sites on Transhumance Initiative. And I'm not going too much into details, but some information are listed in the presentation. With Science for the Carpathians, the network of scientists and researchers of the Carpathians, there is, of course, an ongoing cooperation, and the Ukrainian experts are part of the network, of course, and are very active in the activities of the network. You can see here some active experts from the network, and there is also, of course, Green Dossier. At the 7th Forum Carpathicum, so this symposium of researchers coming from the Carpathians, there was a specific session, a plenary hybrid session on Ukraine, and it was quite interesting and relevant for the symposium itself, where it was some challenges that Ukrainian communities are facing were presented, and there were also some very strong and concrete example of capacity building for green recovery of Ukraine. And as a Carpathian Convention Secretariat, we were ready, and we are still ready to support all the initiatives going into this direction. Here are some recommendations to ensure the green recovery and build better in Ukraine. That, of course, are mentioning the importance of ecosystem services and nature-based solution approach for the future, and then also the importance of strengthening the collaboration with the stakeholders from the Ukrainian Carpathians for project on different topics, like, as I mentioned before, biodiversity, of course, also agriculture and ESD, education for sustainable development. The last information, the Carpathian Convention, the next presidency should be Ukraine. So the next COP should be, and we all hope that will take place in Ukraine, but at the moment we don't know. So it's foreseen for 2026, at the end of 2026. Unfortunately, we still don't know if it's feasible and possible. So we will discuss next week also with the other countries about this. Here is just, a call for stakeholders to be more and more involved in the convention activities. So you can join and engage in the working groups, participate as an observer, but also join the Carpathian networks like Science for the Carpathians or the ESD, so Education for Sustainable Development network. And here you can find our website. The information about our work are all stored in the Carpathian Convention website. And I'm actually very happy to be here today because I listened to very important presentations and I gather important information for the Secretary. So thank you so much for this invitation. And I remain at disposal in case you have questions. Thank you.
Дякую дуже, Елеонора.
Thank you, Eleanor.
У нас є час на запитання, Катя?
Do we have time left for a Q&A session? Yes, we still have some time. However, I'm not sure if there are any questions in our chat box. Well, I don't know, maybe participants have their questions, or maybe there is some feedback that you would like to provide right now. We have some 15 minutes.
Здається, ми всіх перевантажили. Дуже багато інформації.
I think, yes, that people feel overloaded with information. It's a lot of information. It's a lot of interesting information, but it needs some digesting, I guess, some processing of this information. I would like to express gratitude to all of our speakers, to all of our participants. I think that today we have received so many interesting facts and a lot of interesting information was provided. Of course, we cannot commit all of that to our memory. However, we have the session recorded. You will have a possibility to listen to it on our website. Of course, it is our great hope that these communications established between different projects, different peoples, different initiatives, that it will be ongoing. And this is going to be the best result, the best outcome of today's meeting, the continuation of all of that. If there's anybody who would like to take the floor, you have an opportunity to do this now. Well, fine. I think that it's time for us to wrap up this meeting. My gratitude goes to everyone once again. Under this project, we will also have a publication. That is going to be a final publication. You will be further informed about this publication. Next week, there is going to be the Carpathian Convention Implementation Committee. Yes, I'm just trying to think how to interpret that into Ukrainian. Okay, but I will also participate in this meeting and I will share more about our project at this meeting. Many thanks to all the participants and speakers and interpreters.
До зустрічі.
До зустрічі. Дякуємо.
Дякую.
Thank you and goodbye.
Дякую, щасливо.
Thank you.
Щиро дякуємо.